This is 5 Live Formula One with Jenny Gow.
Hello and welcome to Silverstone. Ahead of the British Grand Prix, we have just half an hour, the klaxon just sounding out before the start of this fabulous race. Over 400,000 people have packed into Silverstone over the course of this weekend, ready to see the 20 best drivers in the world compete against the clock, against each other, against this formidable circuit to see which of them will come out on top. Right in front of me, to my right, is the grid spot of Carlos Sainz in Ferrari. He will be starting this race for the very first time in his career on pole position. He's started 150 races. This is the first time he will ever look down at the long stretch towards the first turn and see no other car but those behind him. So pole for Carlos Sainz. He will be right next to Max Verstappen, who starts 7 meters behind him, but 46 points ahead of anybody else in the championship standings. He leads this title race with a commanding position right now. You're listening to us on the BBC website, BBC Sounds, and on BBC Radio Northampton. Thank you for being with us. Let me introduce our team. We have Harry Benjamin, our lead commentator. And Harry, your first F1 commentary for the BBC Radio here at the British Grand Prix. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good about this one, Jenny. The clouds are looming. The grid is absolutely buzzing, as you're saying. And, well, with a first-time pole sitter, Max Verstappen, just behind him as well. The grid is a little bit jumbled up all throughout the top 10. We've got Aston Martins at the back. It's teed up for, hopefully, another fantastic British Grand Prix.
It really is. Let me remind you then of the championship standings as they are right now, because they are being led by Max Verstappen. He had 175 points from just 9 races. He will be looking to extend his 46-point lead at the top of the championship, and 49 points ahead of the man who will start this race in position 3, Charles Leclerc, whose championship challenge has disappeared. He was leading the standings. Now he trails behind. The swing has been 95 points, a very big swing. Now the grid is packed full of celebrities, all sorts of sportsmen and women, and I'm going to try and walk around and find as many of them as possible in this grid walk, because I'm just going to have a quick look at who's coming onto the grid now, because it's a big gaggle of people with all sorts of oh, I see, it's Tom Cruise. Now, how brave do I want to be? I kind of do want to be quite brave. I'm just going to see if he'll talk to me. Tom Cruise is here, live on the BBC.
Straight to Lewis's car.
Oh, he's not going to do any media. Oh, he does say sorry, though. It wasn't him that stopped me from talking to him, but apparently Tom Cruise is here, not going to speak to anyone. That is a shame, but there we go. Harry, this is just the way that life is. Oh, George Russell said hello to me as well. That's nice as he walks off the grid. Let me run you through the grid, because that's what you want to know. We've already spoken about Carlos Sainz. He's just got out of his car. They go for a bit of comfort break and then mosey on back. So you've got Sainz and Verstappen on the front row. Then it's Leclerc and Perez. I can't tell you how busy the grid is right now. It's a little bit of a squash and a squeeze, so I'm going to try and get myself out to the right. After Perez, it is Hamilton and Norris, an all-British third row. Lewis Hamilton in the rain yesterday, unfortunately getting a little bit bogged down. He would have liked to have made his way a little bit further up the grid. I'm going to move on to the grassy area because this is getting a little bit silly. I'm going to go round the side of the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc and wander down a little bit more. So Alonso and Russell are in 7th and 8th, and then it's Zhou and Latifi having an amazing day in the Williams yesterday, managing to qualify in P10. So good for him. That's a very loud generator. I will walk away from that as well. Then we've got Gasly, Bottas, Tsunoda, Ricciardo, Ocon, Albon, Magnussen, Vettel, Schumacher and Stroll. I tell you who I have found, someone who always is lovely to me, Anthony Hamilton. Lewis has said, I'm lovely, thank you. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, thank you very much.
Weird day yesterday with the weather, wasn't it? Loads of rain around, but Lewis did a decent job.
Yeah, you know something, he's always buoyed here by the fans and the crowd, and, you know, as you know, this is his home race. You know, it's like when he was 8 years of age, this is where we wanted to be.
Do you still get nervous when you're here on the grid and all these crazy celebrities are here and you know that Lewis is just about to go out there and compete?
I tell you what, I keep pinching myself. Every day I get up, I pinch myself. I mean, you know, Tom Cruise came over and it's like, hey, Anthony, how's things? And I'm thinking, this can't be real. But it was. But, you know, it's nice because you've got a great fan base here and a lot of people are just nice and positive.
And I tell you what, it's been a difficult week for him with all of the stuff going on in the background with Nelson Piquet Sr. and those comments. He still shines a huge light on such an important topic in this paddock, in sport in general, doesn't he? You must be proud.
You know, we're not just here for racing. You know, we're here for diversity, for inclusion, for equality. If you're not with us, well, and you're against us, just keep quiet. Because at the end of the day, it's about today and it's about tomorrow. It's not about what happened yesterday. People want to move forward. People want to feel positive, you know. And we want some inspiration. We want someone to take us forward. Lead us, please. And so sometimes when you get knocked, it's very sad for those people because all they do is they destroy their own legacy. We're building a legacy and we hope people will come with us. You know, so it's just, for me, it's positive. And my motto in life is, if you can't say anything positive, just say nothing.
On that note, I will let you go. Good luck today. Thank you so much.
Was that a rant?
Do you know what? I'll take the soapbox away now, but it was good.
Thank you.
That was Anthony Hamilton, of course, Lewis Hamilton's father, who's here on the grid. Doesn't come to many races these days, Harry, but an important show of solidarity for him.
Absolutely. There certainly has been a cloud over Formula One this week, as you rightly say, and great to hear there, though, from Anthony Hamilton, because absolutely we need drivers like Hamilton spearheading the way in Formula One. We've got to keep moving forward and we've got to lead by example, really. And Anthony Hamilton echoing what Lewis has been saying all weekend long. Going, though, from 5th on the grid for Hamilton. So a little bit of work to do, as you said, a little bit off in qualifying, but certainly Mercedes bringing upgrades and Hamilton feeling a little bit more comfortable in that Mercedes, which has just been a bit on and off over the last few races, hoping it's certainly more on the on side when the lights go out.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to see if I can grab a quick word with Mika Hakkinen because he's here. Am I allowed to speak to him very quickly? No, he says, because he's busy working for another broadcaster. That's why.
Do they not know who you are, Jenny?
Yeah, they know who I am, but it's fine. Jolyon Palmer, you'll speak to me. You have to, contractually. He is not obliged to. You are, unfortunately for you. This is a cracking atmosphere. One of the best atmospheres I've ever known at Silverstone.
This every year at Silverstone.
But this one seems bigger and better
again. And I can't remember coming to Silverstone and saying it wasn't a record crowd. I think they keep sneaking in another few hundred each time, just so it's the record that's always breaking. This is the biggest Silverstone that they've ever had. 400, just north of 400,000 people here for the weekend. It's not been the weather for them, to be honest, so far, but we did have an interesting wet qualifying yesterday, so the rain has thrown up a little bit. It might rain again. It's quite gusty out there as well. And there's a big British support, but you know there's quite a few Red Bull fans knocking around as well, and a few others. Aston Martin fans out there as well. McLaren obviously cheering on for Lando Norris. Hopefully they're in for a great treat.
Hope so. There are some big grey dark clouds above us right now. Are we expecting any rain with 21 and 50 seconds to go until the start of this race?
There's rain in the area, but I don't know if it's going to hit the track. Might be a few spots here or there, but hey, you can't predict the British weather right now.
That's one thing we know, isn't it? And Freddie Flintoff's in front of me now. I'm just going to see if he'll have a chat with me, and hopefully, Freddie, how you doing? You all right?
Yeah, good, thanks. Having a great day. Just come with my son. He's really got into F1, and with my job now as well, it's just brilliant. Just walking on the grid. You know, you won't get the chance to play at Lords before a day's play, or take penalties at Wembley. It's amazing.
Tell you what, I'm just going to move you this way because you're walking this way anyway, but there's a loud generator just behind us. How have you got your son into F1? Is that Drive to Survive? Is it Netflix?
Do you know what? He's the one who's got me into it. I was never that fussed on it, and then he started watching Drive to Survive like a lot of people. I've watched a few episodes. And it's been so good. You get to know the drivers, you get to know the characters, you understand the racing a bit more. And I'm a convert, to be honest with you. I'm really enjoying it too.
Do you reckon they need to do it with cricket? Would it work with cricket?
What, a documentary? I think it's just a matter of time, isn't it? You see it with other football clubs. It would not have happened when I was playing, to be honest with you. I couldn't have handled cameras in the dressing room.
And what do you make of all of this? I mean, at the front of the grid, we haven't got Lewis Hamilton. He's having a tough year in the Mercedes, but what do you think? Can he fight back today?
Well, we're all hoping, aren't we? Obviously, home Grand Prix. Hopefully, Lewis can get himself back up there. Lando Norris as well. How amazing that we see them two on the podium at the end of it, but I think everybody's just wanting Lewis, you know, to get back on track and start winning races again.
Have you driven round here for Top Gear?
Yeah, I've driven round here. Not in an F1 car, I can't fit in them.
You're too big.
Yeah, I've driven round here and I've just done a hot lap today with the pro driver. He was far quicker than what I was, but fun.
Oh, good stuff. Look, I'll let you go and explore with your son. Thank you for stopping to talk to us. Really nice to see you. There you go. Freddie Flintoff, of course, very famous in the world of cricket, but doing a little bit of a job swap and seeing the world of F1 as well with his son and really enjoying it as well, which is great to see. And Jolien, this is the moment, isn't it? And as he was saying, you don't really get access to people like you do with Formula One, getting to speak to drivers just before you get a race going off.
Yeah, we should mention that probably not everyone gets that access as well, but Freddie Flintoff certainly has managed to get the good spot for the moment on the grid and witnessing the atmosphere. A lot of fans in the grandstands would love that right now. They could just watch on, but they're feeling the atmosphere grow as well. Bit of British support. Freddie wants to see Lewis Hamilton towards the front. I think that'll be a very popular outcome for today's race. And I think he's got a chance as well. Mercedes look a bit quicker. Lewis was disappointed yesterday. I think he's going to be eyes forward today, which is encouraging for a strong race.
Yeah, it really is. 19 minutes until the start of the race. I'm just making my way back towards the front of the grid where Carlos Sainz's Ferrari is there. I'm going to see if I can grab a quick word with Andrea Seidel, because he's the boss down at McLaren, and he might be able to give us a little bit of insight into what to expect during this race. So let me just sidle in. I'm going to interrupt. Sorry, Dieter, I'm just going to interrupt you. We're live on the BBC. Andreas, what are we expecting from the race?
An exciting race for all the fans here. On our side, I think we have a good car to stay around the positions where we start the race from with Lando.
Lando's starting P6 on the third row.
Then on Daniel's side, I think there's definitely some slower cars ahead of him, so the goal is clear. We want to move forward. And then we obviously have to see as well what the Sky is doing. I'm hoping for a dry race, no extra complications, and just score some good points.
I think a lot of people are hoping for a little bit of rain because it's a mixed up grid, isn't it?
Yeah, no, definitely. But I think even in dry conditions with a mixed up grid, there's enough action probably.
All right, stay safe. Thank you very much. Have a good race. So that's Andrea Seidel, the boss down at McLaren. I'm heading towards a very large group of people, so I wonder who's going to be there. We've got the national anthem coming up in just a couple of moments, and it's Sam Ryder, of course, the man from the Eurovision Song Contest, who will be doing that national anthem. Oh, I see why. I'm in the middle of an absolute hubbub and melee. Philip Schofield's just in front of me. I think he's loitering, actually, to speak to Tom Cruise. He's speaking to... There's quite a lot of film producers and directors here because of the big Brad Pitt Formula One movie that's going to be taking place. And they're just now meeting Sir Jackie Stewart in front of me. It really is packed down here. I cannot tell you. Well, I can. I am literally telling you how busy it is. But the stars of the world seem to have descended on Silverstone here to see exactly what's going to happen in this race. It is a fantastic atmosphere here at Silverstone as we wait for the national anthem to get underway. Lewis Hamilton just walking onto the grid now. You can probably hear the reaction as the Mercedes driver, an 8 times winner around this circuit in Formula One, goes up and just has a little chat with everybody else, actually. Oh, I tell you what, Jolien, the wind's picked up.
It's going to make life a bit trickier with the wind picking up. There could be a bit of rain moving in as well, but it's a very flat circuit, so even if it doesn't rain, just windy conditions will make life a little bit harder for the drivers as well. A
little bit of a problem on Charles Leclerc's car, actually. They've just taken a bit that was flapping away from the car, and they're still working on it, just on the right-hand side of the car. So I don't know exactly what's going on, but maybe an issue. I'll try and find out what's going on with Charles Leclerc. He starts in P3, but it is time for everybody to get to their feet and celebrate the national anthem at the British Grand Prix as Sam Ryder takes to the microphone, and we all remain silent.
God save our gracious Queen, long live our noble Queen.
then the red arrows overhead. There's 6, 7 jets go over, 3 white, 2 blue, 2 red plumes of smoke just waft around in the wind here at Silverstone, and I'm just going to see if I can just grab a quick word, because there's a lot of famous people, and one of them is Gordon Ramsay, and he loves his Formula One. I'm just going to say hello to him. Gordon, you're having a great day out. The atmosphere here is incredible, isn't it?
It just reaffirms just how important this sport is to the UK, and more importantly, 400,000 in 48 hours. The home of British motor racing. How cool.
It's very cool, and there's a nice mixture at the front as well on this grid when you've got 2 Ferraris, 2 Red Bulls, the Mercedes maybe back to form.
So good to see. They've got their aerodynamics correct. Lewis top 5, Ferrari strong. Max is hoping for some rain, so fingers crossed. What an exciting day.
Do you know what? I'd love to hear you do a team talk with one of the teams. Would you get cross with them? Would you get angry, or are you going to be chill?
Straight to the point.
As always. Thank you so much. That's Gordon Ramsay. So straight to the point. Who needs that lecture? Who needs a bit of a boost today, Jolyon?
I think everyone's straight to the point, really. I don't know. Everyone's fired up enough. I guess people don't know they're not fired up until Gordon Ramsay comes and approaches you, and then you realise the motivation that you didn't think you needed. But yeah, there's Max Verstappen starting second, has to try and fight for the lead. I think he will, because Sainz on pole, starting there for the first time in his Formula One career, he's going to be under pressure. He hasn't been as fast as Verstappen or Leclerc, who are starting second and third all season in the races really so far. So pressure on Sainz. Verstappen wants to win. Leclerc has to win for the championship as well. I'm still getting over that national anthem. What a rendition.
It was tremendous, wasn't it? It was proper rock out. I mean, I kind of expected no less, but it's absolutely brilliant. I'm just scooching around actually to see if I can find him. He's gone off in totally the other direction, so maybe not. But right, so let's talk race-wise, because Carlos Sainz starts at the front for the very first time. What does he have to do to keep that place and try and win this race?
Well, he has to keep in front of the other cars behind him, in simple terms, to win the race, doesn't he? He has to keep a cool head. But he is cool, calm and collected as Carlos Sainz. The issue with him, isn't it, Jolene, that we've seen in these last few races, that he just seems to perhaps lack that little bit of race pace just straight out.
Harry, he's the self-proclaimed smooth operator. If he wants to operate smoothly today, he's got to get a good start first today. It's not the longest run to the first corner, and it should be doable for him to keep the cars behind. But we know what happened last year with the front two fighting for the championship last year, but also for the race win around this circuit. The crowd buoy everyone up. They're all G'd, ready for the big one. And there was that controversial incident between Hamilton and Verstappen last year. Sainz, of course, wants nothing to do with that. He's taken his first pole, needs a good, clean start, doesn't want to be defending on the first lap, and then concentrate on the race, because the battle's going to be long with Verstappen behind.
Carlos Sainz just putting his helmet on by the side of his Ferrari boss, Mattia Binotto, just having a final word with him. And then one step back, it is Max Verstappen. And Jolyon, he will be hunting straight from the off.
He's looked the quicker of the two drivers, of the 20 drivers, let's say, yesterday in the good dry running that we had in practice. He also looked quicker in the rain as well, to be honest. Verstappen is on monumental form. He has a big lead in the championship, 49 points over Leclerc, 46 points over his teammate. Perez, I think, has got work to do from fourth to be a factor in this race anyway, and he's currently second in the championship. So Verstappen, he doesn't need to risk everything, but that's just how Max Verstappen operates, isn't it? He loves just chasing the Grand Prix wins. He's become maybe a little bit more circumspect this season. We've seen it in the fights with Leclerc, certainly early on when Leclerc held him off in Bahrain. But he's still going to be hunting now for the win.
Jolyon, they're still working on Charles Leclerc's car, and I don't know if it's some sort of fuel leak they've got, but they've got tissues out, they've got wraps out, they've got scissors out, all on the right-hand side, which is where the fuel port is. Now, Charles needs to come around. He's just in front of me. If I reached out, I would touch him, but I'm not going to do that because it's probably not the recommended thing to do. But he's waiting to get into the car. He's going to have to climb around the mechanics and try and get in, which he's doing just now. But reliability has been the issue for Ferrari this season, and it seems like they are having an issue right now. You've got Adrian Newey from Red Bull, who's just come to have a little look on. You've got people from Mercedes who have just come to have a look on and see what's going on as well. This is bad news, potentially.
Ask Adrian what he thinks of it.
Well,
he'll know more than me.
Do you know what? I was just going to do that. I'll have a little chat with him and see if I can find out. But he's just talking to somebody else at the moment. I don't want to interrupt.
I'm looking out the commentary box window, and if I lean over the desk, I can see the Ferrari. I can just about make out Sainz on pole as well. There's not a huge amount of commotion down there. It looks like it's methodical work.
I don't know, Jolyon. I would say there's quite a lot of consternation here. They're taping up that area now with that Invisa-tape that's very thin and tries not to disturb the aerodynamics. But
is it an adjustment to cooling, possibly? The temperatures are changing quite quickly. They're allowed to change cooling in the regs, so maybe they've seen something there. Or, I mean, if it's something deeper on the reliability side of things, then we know Ferrari have been fragile in recent races. Leclerc has suffered immeasurably with a couple of DNFs recently. If he has another one here, he's toast this season.
Championship challenge, gone.
Yeah.
Perez starting P4, he's just to the left of me now, and then you have the Mercedes of Lewis Hamilton next to Lando Norris, who's standing in his car right now. He will just duck down the halo, which is this protective barrier that we've seen fundamental now to saving people when they have accidents. He holds on to that and lowers himself in with his luminous green and yellow helmet. He's ready to go racing at Silverstone. The music comes on as well. You can see they've got a DJ. He's loud. Fernando Alonso on my right, just stretching his arms up into the air and getting into his cockpit. And then the tall, rangy figure of Toto Wolff to my left. I'm just going to approach as he looks on at George Russell's car. And Toto, you look wrapped up for rain. Do you expect some?
I'm just wrapped up for English weather. You never know what happens.
Oh, yeah, because yours is so different from our weather.
Miles better.
We shall see very shortly. Look, George Russell did a decent job yesterday, but he starts P8. You got Lewis a couple of cars further up. What are you hoping for today? What is realistic?
I think we had a good race car on Friday. But honestly, I don't know. We have to see. We had so much troubles in the past that I'd rather be on the cautious side.
And would you like some rain for Lewis and George?
No, I'd rather keep it dry.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, well, fingers crossed for you. Good luck. Thank you very much to Toto Wolff. So we are just 7.5 minutes away from the start of this Grand Prix. I will continue to walk down. So past George Russell, we have Guan Yu Zhou Guan Yu. He is P9, and then in 10th it's Nicholas Latifi. I'm getting closer to this music. I thought I was getting further away, but there we go. Latifi, his first top 10 earned start. He did a great job yesterday, guys.
He really did. It's the first time he's made it into Q3 this year. In fact, it's the first time he's even progressed from Q1 into Q2 for the first time this season. The only driver to have yet to get that. So that's a bit of a black mark off of his copybook. However, it was in the wet, the mixed conditions. He's hopeful it's not a flash in the pan. In the dry, though, it's going to be a tough one for Nicholas Latifi to stay up there, bearing in mind that Alex Albon, his teammate, has all the upgrades that Williams have brought this weekend. They were rumoured to be worth around a second in qualifying. That didn't bear out, I think, due to the mixed conditions. But certainly, what a result for Nicholas Latifi. And I think he'll just be trying to hang on to that for as long as possible.
52 laps await the 20 drivers here, and I can tell you it is going off. You can hear it's going off because it's so blooming loud. I think it's Jax Jones who's holding a little DJ party along the start-finish straight in the new building that they've bought opposite the pits, and it is being pumped out everywhere, so I can't even get away from it. But it's good music. They've got a good guest list and cast list here this weekend, and F1 has never been, it feels, so big, Jolyon. Oh.
Well, I'll pipe up. It's certainly, it's never been so. You go back to Anthony Hamilton, who you spoke to right at the start. You know, Formula One, this is so crucial to have packed grandstands at a really competitive grid. Of course, a new generation of Formula One cars, a new era that we enter into. It's spearheading the way for Formula One in the future. And just the atmosphere really soaking up here as the clouds start to gather a little bit. I did hear rumours, Jenny, right at the start that rain was scheduled to come at 3 o'clock on the dot, but that's now been minimised to about 20%. So still might be worth watching, but probably not.
Yeah, we had a couple of drops just as I was going down to the grid a couple of minutes ago, but that seems to have evaporated a fair bit. Just talking about the Brits and thinking about them, we have 3 terrific Brits at the front end of this race. P8 for Russell, Norris in 6, 5 for Lewis Hamilton, and all 3 of them really motivated, aren't they, to get on that podium?
Oh, massively. You don't get more motivated as a Brit than racing at Silverstone for the British Grand Prix, and especially when it's the biggest ever crowd at the British Grand Prix. So they're all in a relative contention for a podium. None of them have got an easy to get there. I mean, Hamilton has been the star of the British Grand Prix for so many years, but he starts 5th. Lando Norris, the young pretender in the McLaren, alongside him, but the McLaren's not as quick as the Mercedes. We heard Toto Wolff saying he wants it to be dry because he thinks the Mercedes team can move forward even in those conditions, stable conditions, against the Red Bulls and Ferraris maybe. And George Russell has the most to do from 8th, I guess. Didn't hook it up in qualifying yesterday, but has a lot of support here as well, and he's been Mr. Consistency this year. Hasn't finished the race outside of the top 5. Can he get back there again?
Yeah, that'll be the question, won't it? He's had such a successful start to the season, but he's in a position which he's probably going to be the one that struggles the most to try and find a way forward. Are these cars actually better to overtake him? We've spoken about it a fair bit. The rules were changed. Is it going to make this race a thriller?
I hope so. It's been no question it's been better this year, I think, the racing. It's still not easy to overtake in Formula 1, but there's DRS, there's some good overtaking places, some big braking zones into Village, turn 3 that you might hear, certainly down the Wellington Straight into Brooklands at turn 6, Copse Corner, even an overtaking place as we saw, or nearly saw last year as well. So there's a few opportunities for George. And he came from 8th place in the last Grand Prix and finished 4th on the tail of his teammates. So he's shown that he can move forward. But as you say, he's got the most to do simply because he had the worst qualifying yesterday from those Brits.
Yeah, absolutely. You're listening to BBC Radio 5 Live's coverage of Formula 1, BBC Sound, the BBC Sport website, and on BBC Radio Northampton. I'm Jenny Gow. Up in the commentary box, we have Jolyon Palmer and our lead commentator, Harry Benjamin. The klaxon sounds, 3 minutes to go until the formation lap. The last of our engineers just coming away from the grid to leave just a handful of mechanics on there, the drivers and their cars. Jolyon, this is the moment where you've got to focus yourself, and you know you are just a couple of minutes away from the start of one of the most important races in your career.
Yeah, I mean, it's still one of 22 this season, but it's just the buzz and the atmosphere that the drivers are all feeling. The Brits, of course, but everyone else. I mean, Max Verstappen was getting quite a few boos yesterday, but he's taking it on the chin. He's saying, you know, fine, it's all part of the atmosphere here. Of course, he's a little bit the villain around this circuit with such a big British crowd. And it's all part of the atmosphere. We can still hear the music pumping in the background. The drivers strapped in now, the mechanics clearing away, ready for the British Grand Prix, and it should be quite fiery, I think. They've got to get through the first lap safely at the front.
Yeah, and that is the big thing. They've got to get through cleanly. We saw last year. Do you remember last year's race? It was epic because there was this big crash in the first lap between our two title protagonists, Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton. Do you think it's going to get off cleanly?
No one's going to forget last year's race. I mean, it was one of the most controversial incidents in a long time between Verstappen and Hamilton. If there was Hamilton alongside Verstappen again, I mean, the scene would really be set. But Max this year seems to be a little bit more composed against the two Ferraris. But you have got in there, you've got Carlos Sainz on pole, lest we forget, took his first pole yesterday, and he's never won a race. So there's pressure on Carlos Sainz there. Hasn't led a formation lap since presumably his days of World Series by Renault in the feeder series back in 2014. So that's a long time that he hasn't actually led the cars around on the grid. If all the nerves are going to be jangling in the cockpits, Sainz is going to be the most, and he has Verstappen alongside him. And we all know, as you said and I said, what happened last year.
Yeah, no one's going to forget that, are they? With klaxon sounds, 1 minute. 1 minute to go until the formation lap begins. The nerves are starting to jangle. You can hear the chain being played out by the DJ on the side. There's quite a lot of smoke coming up from some of these cars, but I can't see. Is there anything interesting going on the grid that I should be concerned about?
They're wheeling back George Russell ever so slightly, just to give him a bit of room to lay some rubber down when he gets going for the formation lap.
Harry, there's a big thing on the grid, and that's the tyre choice. Verstappen in second is starting on soft tyres. Sainz, Leclerc, Perez, Hamilton, all the major players are on mediums. Verstappen has got punchy, soft tyres on the grid. For the first time this year, really, we've seen a difference in tyre strategy. So Verstappen and Red Bull punchy. They think they've got more pace. They want to take the lead off the start. It's a big play from Red Bull.
Well, it is a first-time pole position for Carlos Sainz. Max Verstappen, though, will go from second. He is leading the drivers' standings. It's time for the British Grand Prix. Well, it is a first-time pole for Carlos Sainz in 150 Grand Prix starts. He lines up ahead of Max Verstappen, who celebrated his 150th start last time out in Canada. He converted that into the win. Charles Leclerc will go just behind them in third. Off the front row for the first time this year, Sergio Perez in fourth. He's never started higher than 12th before. Lewis Hamilton, the first of the Brits, in fifth, just in front of Lando Norris in the McLaren. Then comes Fernando Alonso in the Alpine. George Russell completes the top 8. Zhou Guanyu, a fantastic qualifying in the wet to once again out-qualify Valtteri Bottas. He goes from 9th, ahead of an outstanding Q3 for Nicholas Latifi, who goes from 10th in the Williams. Just missing out, Pierre Gasly in the AlphaTauri. Then comes Bottas in the Alfa Romeo. Yuki Tsunoda, Daniel Ricciardo, Esteban Ocon will go from 15th spot. Then it's Alexander Albon. Kevin Magnussen in 17th. Sebastian Vettel in 18th. He's just in front of Mick Schumacher. And Lance Stroll is 20th and last here for the British Grand Prix. Well, the formation lap well and truly underway. 52 laps awaiting us, as you say, Jolene, right at the start. Max Verstappen going punchy on that soft tyre. Carlos Sainz on the medium. There's only 5 drivers on the soft compound tyre. That's going to jazz things up at the start.
Yeah, it's Verstappen at the front, then Latifi from 10th, just trying to hold some position early on, and then drivers further back, Albon, Magnussen and Vettel on the soft. Russell's done the opposite in the Mercedes. He's the only driver on the hard from 8th position, but everyone else on the medium, and they're already coming round to the end of the formation up. It's been quite a quick one from Carlos Sainz as he comes through club corner and brings it round to the right.
Well, we are just about to get underway for the British Grand Prix here at Silverstone. Carlos Sainz, the first-time pole sitter in the Ferrari, is bringing them round now onto the grid. He will go in front of Max Verstappen. It's been a fairly quick formation lap, though, as Sainz starts to bunch the pack up, so he's not waiting too long at the front of the grid. They now line up in that first row. Carlos Sainz, Max Verstappen, P1 and 2. Jenny Gao is down on the grid.
Grey clouds above us here at Silverstone. The chance of rain coming up in this race, but dry and sunny right now.
Thank you, Jenny. I'd be a bit surprised if you're on the grid, but you're on the pit lane, that's for sure. Former Formula One driver Jolyon Palmer alongside me. This is critical now. Cars lining up as we await Lance Stroll in the Aston Martin, who will take to that final grid spot.
Verstappen on the soft tyres, most of the major contenders on the mediums, and Max was very, very punchy. A lot of burnouts on his way to his grid slot on the inside of the front row. He needs a good start then on those soft tyres.
Lance Stroll lines up in that final grid spot. The green flag waves at the back. Max Verstappen is on the left-hand side. Pole sitter Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari is on the right-hand side. It's all eyes to the lights and foot to the floor as we go racing in Silverstone. It looks like it's a better start for Max Verstappen, who's already ahead going into turn 1. Sainz follows him through. There's a spinner at the back, though. Big contact between an Alfa Romeo going straight off into the wall. That is a huge incident. Immediate yellow flag. I wouldn't be surprised if that is an immediate safety car, as cars still doing battle. In fact, it's a red flag, Jolyon Palmer, as Verstappen is in the lead.
Russell, it's George Russell that is in the wall, I think. Had contact maybe with Fernando Alonso. Was he involved in that? Russell's getting out the car and he's done. Mr. Consistency's round of top 5s is going to end here. He was on a hard tyre and he came into the first corner already having had contact. He's got damage on the left rear. The tyres completely come away from that. But at the front, the soft tyres worked for Verstappen then. Those softs, they gave him more grip. It was an aggressive strategy from Red Bull, and it's worked. Damage also for Yuki Tsunoda in the AlphaTauri. He started quite a long way further back, 5 places further back than Russell. Did they come together? I think there was another car in there as well.
Well, red flag straight away here at the British Grand Prix. Back to Naomi at Wimbledon. Okay, well, lap 1 not even finished. So George Russell out of this race. Yuki Tsunoda with damage, and I'm so certain I saw an Alfa Romeo, and I think it might have been Zhou Guanyu involved in that too, as is Alex Albon in the Williams. Multiple cars out. It looks like Albon. Ocon is at the back as well. Zhou Guanyu, Russell, Tsunoda, all being caught up in that incident.
Yeah, Alonso wasn't caught up then. I think it must have been Ocon's Alpine that I saw it now. Alonso started alongside Russell, but somehow it was Ocon that's fallen to the back of the field. Alonso's up in 5th, so he made a good start. Hamilton had a really great start as well. From 5th place on the grid, immediately jumped into 3rd. Leclerc lost a place. Perez lost 2 places. It's quite jumbled up then. The red flag's going to change things because they basically have to do another start. And Ocon has got big damage. This is the sound you can hear of the Alpine. The front right is flailing around, and he is just trying to make it back to the pits. But he's only at Luffield corner, and that could be another retirement from this one. So we could have 4 cars out.
Yeah, the sound you're hearing is riding on board with the Frenchman Esteban Ocon.
His suspension is really gone.
It really is. And Albon out of the car too. We saw George Russell out of this car. Jenny is down in the pits.
Yeah, and the pit lane's just getting busy. So let's see the cars coming through. The first one through is Verstappen. Then it's Sainz. Then it's Lewis Hamilton. Then Charles Leclerc. So that's the order of the top 4. Fernando Alonso is next to come in, followed by Sergio Perez. As the cars stream down the pit lane here, Lando Norris is the next one in his McLaren, and then the Williams of Nicholas Latifi, presumably the sole Williams now. Bottas following him along in the Alfa Romeo. A big incident. The session is suspended at the moment. The fans wait on, and a spluttering car of Daniel Ricciardo in the McLaren comes down. I don't know if he got contact. The car doesn't look 100% healthy. Then Pierre Gasly, followed by the other cars coming back in now. And just waiting to see how the damaged cars look, if they're going to limp back. But I could be here for quite a long time. So I'll hand back to you.
Thanks, Jenny. Yeah, multiple cars. Yuki Tsunoda now has just been able to make it back into the pit lane with extensive damage. All cars filing into the pit lane and lining up right at the very end. I'm certain Zhou Guanyu in the Alfa Romeo was involved in that incident, and it looked like he took the biggest impact. We haven't seen a full replay yet, but as soon as we know, we will let you know. George Russell, meanwhile, is walking back through the gravel. In fact, as soon as he got out of the cockpit of his Mercedes, he ran across the gravel, I think, to check on Zhou Guanyu, who is out of our picture at the moment. But Lewis Hamilton out of his car, back into the pit lane. The order is Verstappen, Sainz, Hamilton, Leclerc, Alonso, Perez, Norris, Latifi, Bottas, Ricciardo, Gasly, Magnussen, Vettel, Stroll, Schumacher, then Tsunoda and Ocon, who is still making his way back to the grid. Just hearing, Jolien, that the extraction team are there for Alfa Romeo Zhou Guanyu right now.
Yeah, there's multiple cars. Then Russell is out and stranded at turn 1. Ocon is still limping his way back towards the pit lane. Of course, with red flag conditions, they can actually fix his car. And the same with Tsunoda, who had a lot of damage. So Ocon and Tsunoda getting back. Russell's out. Albon is out as well. But at the moment, it's Zhou that we haven't seen, and it seems to be a very serious impact for him. So no news at the moment on Zhou, but the extraction team coming to help him out the car, and hopefully we can get some news on him soon.
And I think we did see, multiple cars involved in that melee. It was in the background as we were watching Max Verstappen take the lead, but Zhou Guanyu, I think, going upside down at one point into the gravel. That Alfa Romeo stricken at the moment as we see the Williams there fairly damaged as well. The sound you're hearing is on board, but stopped in the pit lane. Esteban Ocon, and that front right taking so much damage. The Alpine engineers are right there getting to work on that suspension. Wheel off. Jenny is down there for us.
Yeah, and the drivers always look a little bit of a loose end. What they'll do first of all, Yuki Tsunoda's just by me, is go and try and find out if everyone's okay. Then they'll go and watch a replay of what happened for them to be able to understand it in their own minds. So Tsunoda going into his garage, but Gasly walking towards the pit wall to talk to his team. And in front of me, Tsunoda's car, the number 22 AlphaTauri, looking in a bit of a sorry state, I'm afraid to say. The bodywork just spraying off it, and the team, of course, now it's red flag situations, can work on their cars. They can change tyres, they can change anything they need to make that car roadworthy. The same, as you said, with Esteban Ocon. He's still there. He's just in front of me in that blue Alpine car with the little pink bits of trim. They have a big job to do to get that suspension, the front right suspension, changed on the car. But this seems like it might be quite a long delay, so at least they've got a little bit of time on their hands to play with. But a pretty difficult time for the drivers in an incident like this. They've just got to remain composed, get as much information as they can, and then wait.
Oh yeah, thanks Jenny. We're just hearing more news as well. The extraction team at Zhou Guanyu's Alfa Romeo at the moment are struggling to extract the Chinese racing driver from his cockpit because of how the car is. It's on its side, in between the Armco barrier and the fencing too, so they're struggling to get access. Of course, a brilliant team running the Silverstone operation this weekend, doing their absolute utmost to get to Zhou Guanyu as quickly and as safely as possible. But this is a difficult one for the drivers to balance, isn't it, Jolene? Because they'll all know what's going on. They'll be hoping for the best for Zhou Guanyu, but also they've now got to keep their head in the game. They've got to reset. Hamilton is back in the garage, so he thinks it's going to be a long time. Otherwise, you think he'd sit in his car.
Yeah, well, the red flag was actually shown. I mean, it was waved so quickly, wasn't it? So it was yellow flag for an instant, and then immediately I think race control knew that the situation was a little more serious than that. It's a full red flag. We have some of the best marshals in the world at Silverstone, and they are trying to get to Zhou, and the extraction team as well, trying to get to him down in the barriers at turn 1. George Russell's back in the pits. Short walk back for him, but his car didn't make it down at turn 1. And with the red flag, there is a chance for Ocon and Tsunoda to get back into this one, but there was a big damage on Ocon's suspension. It was completely ripped in half, the front right suspension, so he's taken a big whack on that somewhere.
Yeah, so I picked up some debris on the way, so just when I come back, have a look.
Yeah, we'll check in the pit lane.
Does this mean we start again? V2, I guess. We are asking.
Exit of turn 3. I was in side by side, and obviously Lewis just did like if I was not there, so I hope they are looking into that.
Well, hearing from Bottas, Sainz and Leclerc there, so yeah, this restart is going to be, hopefully when we get it underway, going to be interesting on what the race control and race directors deem to do, because, well, we had 4 corners essentially, didn't we?
I think there's probably enough time to take it from where they're at, though. It's what happened in Jeddah in between red flags last year, and of course there was the debate with Michael Massey over the radio on whether Verstappen could start on first, or it was deal or no deal for a moment, but they ended up taking the order from where the incident was, and on that day it was turn 4 that took a number of drivers out. Here it is turn 1, it's a little bit earlier, but there is an established order, so I think they'll go with that. I think Verstappen now, by virtue of using those soft tyres, is basically taken pole position for this restart. Sainz wants it clarified. Leclerc wants it clarified that Hamilton forced him off the road on the exit of turn 3, so he's pointing the finger at Lewis Hamilton, who's had that great start and got himself up into 3rd position. And of course, with the red flag now, they can change tyres. If you've used a soft tyre, you can switch to a medium. If you've used a medium, you don't have a lot of options, apart from maybe now Sainz switches the order and starts to run a soft and tries to do the Verstappen strategy and the Red Bull strategy to take that lead back. Leclerc lost out there with a slip down to 4th, but with the Mercedes in between, he needs to try and clear Lewis Hamilton when he gets going. Of course, Leclerc, being probably the main rival to Verstappen in the championship, seeing the Red Bull man out front is not ideal.
Well, good news to bring you. Zhou Guanyu has been extracted. Dr. Ian Roberts down there as well with him, out of the car on a stretcher, being taken away as we watch a replay on board. The reigning champion Max Verstappen. It was a nice clean start from Lewis Hamilton as well, as the sound you're hearing now. Great start, straight up to 3rd, and coming through turn 1 now, a nice run at it, straight through on Leclerc. Yeah,
Verstappen's move was easy on the soft tyres, just had the grip. Hamilton's was seamless as well, medium tyres, the same as the Ferrari and the Red Bull of Leclerc and Perez. And that's the sound of Perez, anti-stall, dropped the clutch too far and he had to have a second bite at it. Hamilton sweeps through, and actually Perez was lucky at that stage not to lose out more ground, but then Alonso did come through on the exit of turn 1 as well. Alonso's always a fast starter, always aggressive, as was Perez, launching it back at turn 3, but he couldn't make it stick. So some poor starts in there for Perez and Leclerc. Lightning from Hamilton, good from Alonso as well. He's up 2 places, and Lando Norris losing out 1 to the Spaniard in the Alpine.
Lando Norris, yeah, with a decent start, but not what he would have wanted. Zhou Guanyu is moving and on a stretcher, which he is being strapped to at the moment, but he is moving. So just keeping you abreast of that. Zhou Guanyu out of the car, on a stretcher and moving to that Alfa Romeo car we saw go upside down after some sort of contact. We haven't seen the full replay into the gravel. George Russell, meanwhile, watches his Mercedes on the back of a flatbed truck. I wonder if he's bartering with with the marshals there to see if they can get that back to the pit lane, if he can get going in this race, because otherwise it'll be his first retirement this year.
I'm sure he got back to the pit lane, didn't he, Russell?
He was.
Has he gone back to the track to go to his car, and now they want to try and get the car back so they can work on it?
He's a quick runner.
Alpine are doing.
Quite possibly Alpine still working away at that front right. Yuki Tsunoda also sustained big damage to his front wing, and I think the front right tyre as well. So Yuki Tsunoda in the Alpha Tauri fixing problems. Jenny's down in the pit lane. What's happening down there now, Jenny?
Yeah, well, I've just come down into the paddock actually to try and find out if there's any extra news, and the team surrounding Zhou have just walked out from the paddock. The media officer and also a guy called Mark, who looks after him, has just come back actually into the paddock after kind of giving me a partial thumbs up, but he is just getting into the ambulance now. And I have to say, the world's top class medical professionals are here. There's also a hospital that's always on standby, and they can get him to that hospital very quickly if they need to. But they have all the precautionary checks, and they now have gloves which have special telemetry in them, which tells them what the impact was. If there's any issues with a driver, it's all very, very safe. And the FIA work tirelessly to try and improve safety standards all the time. But obviously, not the start that everyone would have wanted to the British Grand Prix. And Zhou Guanyu now getting medical attention. The race at the moment red flagged, and all of the drivers and teams just waiting to see what happens.
We still haven't seen a replay of what happened, as is the norm in any serious incident. They started alongside each other, Russell and Zhou. It was a terrific effort from Zhou yesterday. Got himself into 9th on the grid. Russell started 8th on the hard tyre, and they've obviously come to blows at turn 1. Ocon from 15th has tripped over them somewhere. Tsunoda started outside the top 10 and has got involved as well, as did Alex Albon. So I wonder if there was an early contact and then avoiding contact further back. But as it is, it's Russell back in the pits now. The car is on the back of a flatbed, so I don't think he's going to be taking further part unless this delay is extremely lengthy. And we're waiting more positive news on Guanyu Zhou.
Well, George Russell is waiting there patiently at the end of the grid by his Mercedes that is on the flatbed truck at the end of the pit lane. Packed grandstands here, waiting for green flag racing to get underway, but still a lengthy process. I imagine there'll be work going on to the barrier as well by what we can hear, how the impact and the angle of Zhou Guanyu's Alfa Romeo went into the exit of turn 1. It was a decent start by the looks of things, making hay of perhaps the incidents unfolding in front of him. Daniel Ricciardo up from 14th into 10th. Bottas as well getting up into 9th place. Nicholas Latifi making moves. Perez and Norris the losers in the top 10. But the big gain is obviously Stroll making a lot of moves from the back of the grid, thanks to the absolute carnage that unfolded going into turn 1 here at Silverstone. Red flag conditions though.
George Russell now pleading with the technical delegate Joe Bauer to see if he can get the car off the back of the flatbed and repaired. I think because it didn't come back into the pit lane under its own steam, then he can't, basically, is what he's been told. It's on the back of the flatbed. He's missed the lap that everyone else has done as well. At least Ocon and Tsunoda trundled round at a snail's pace to get back, whereas Russell's was just hiked onto the back of a flatbed and taken 100 metres or 200 metres the wrong way to the pit lane entry, where it is remaining. So Russell, who has been a picture of consistency this year, he's 4th in the championship, ahead of Carlos Sainz and ahead of Lewis Hamilton for now. He looks like he's going to be taking no further part. Mercedes can't even work on that car for now.
Lewis Hamilton wanders back out into the pit lane, arms crossed, earpods in as well, as he chats to his engineer Pete Bonington about the situation at hand. Looking fairly confident though is Lewis Hamilton. He managed to get up to 3rd in that melee. Jenny Gow down in the pit lane.
Yeah, just watching the different conversations happening, the different work on the cars to try and get them in the best condition possible for whenever the restart is. And it's worth mentioning the process of this then. So race control will oversee everything, and at some point they'll decide that they can give the warning for the restart, and it's normally a 10-minute warning that the drivers and teams will receive, and at that point they start to get the cars ready. The drivers will probably go for a comfort break and then come back to their cars and get ready to do a start. And if I'm not incorrect, then they get to either do a rolling restart or a normal standing start, and the race director will make the decision on that as well.
I believe it'll be a standing start, most likely, from this situation. We'll go again. It didn't happen in Monaco when there was a red flag, but that was condition specific. It was sort of wet in part of the track, dry in other parts of the track, and deemed not the sensible thing to do. I don't see a reason why they wouldn't do another standing start for this one. They only got 4 corners in, and I mean, could well go again. And of course, that's great news for Hamilton. Started 5th last time, gained 2 places, got into 3rd. Now he starts 3rd, and this is a Mercedes that is much upgraded for this race as well. Struggled for the first 9 Grand Prix, got a podium in Bahrain round 1 because both Red Bulls didn't finish late on. Same again in Canada because of issues elsewhere. But here they've got genuine pace, and Hamilton's made a blistering start. He's basically corrected his poor qualifying from yesterday, where he wasn't particularly happy with the run plan from the team. He's back into 3rd. He's ahead of Leclerc and Perez, and he wants to try and get a minimum of a podium at his home Grand Prix. So another standing start could be good news for Hamilton, having made one blistering start already.
And especially good news for Max Verstappen, who managed to take the lead away from Carlos Sainz very early doors. Verstappen with just a much better start than the Spaniard, who was on for his first ever pole position. In fact, did you know, Jolyon Palm, that the only time someone in their maiden pole position has gone on to win was Pastor Maldonado back in 2012. It hasn't been done since, from a maiden pole.
Since 2012, the last time it happened was Pastor Maldonado. Amazing.
Well, there you go then. Lap 2, but under red flag conditions. Daniel Ricciardo is in the garage. Nicholas Latifi as well too, watching on. He had a career best start in 10th, has managed to make his way up to 8th, but all in the garage and awaiting more information. Jenny Gow.
Yeah, I've just seen a lot of the Alfa Romeo team, actually more friends and relatives of Zhou, just going to the Alfa Romeo hospitality suite. Graham Loudon there as well, so I'll just leave them at the moment to get on with what they do. But if I walk a little bit further down the paddock, George Russell's car is now here, and you can see the damage to the car. They're just trying to assess it while it's still on the back of this flatbed, and there's actually a flatbed congestion because at the front of it you've got the Williams car of Albon, which has got the front right is absolutely destroyed. On George Russell's car, it looks like rear left suspension is a little bit of an issue. I'm getting in the way of the mechanics, which I don't want to do, so I'll just move slightly out of the way. So they're just lifting the car up now, and this is where all the photographers try and get themselves to be in a situation where they can take a nice picture of the floor, because that's where a lot of the delicate information is surrounding these cars. And a lot of the clues to how these cars work is hidden, but they're doing a good job of trying to keep it down. There's bits of wing and carbon fibre just dangling off it a little, but actually it doesn't look in too much of a bad way. I mean, Albon's Williams behind it looks destroyed, but I'm trying to work out, I mean, he won't, I think we've had this debate, he won't be allowed to stop, but the car looks as if it could just go out there and race with a little bit of a fix to the rear left. So a huge frustration, but you can see where the point of impact must have been at the rear left. Even the inside drum is pretty mushed.
Well, that's what this red flag allows, doesn't it, for those repairs to be made. Just hearing more updates, though, Jenny, while you're talking about Zhou Guanyu. The ambulance has arrived at the medical centre. Zhou Guanyu in a wheelchair, so I imagine he'll be getting ready to be extracted from the circuit to make his way to the nearby hospital. But that is fairly good news that Zhou Guanyu out of the car, back into the paddock and waiting to get into the ambulance. Zhou Guanyu in the Alfa Romeo had that big crash and involved in that huge incident, which we have still yet to see a replay of exactly what happened as the reason to this red flag here at the British Grand Prix.
We haven't seen the Alfa Romeo car or the barriers, so that's why I'm sure there's a delay now. Good news that Zhou is out and in the medical centre, but we're yet to see the barriers or the car, and that's why I think this is an unknown but probably lengthy delay right now, as there's extraction of the car work possibly, or just repair of the barriers going on at turn 1 before we can even think about what sort of restart we're gonna have here.
Jenny, you got more on George Russell?
Just trying to earwig what Joe Bauer, the technical director down at the FIA, is saying to the McLaren team. I think it was Lando Norris this side of the garage. We're asking what are we expecting here as they work on the cars. And I can tell you, George Russell's Mercedes has been lifted off the flatbed, and it has been pushed with its little black cover on it to cover up any of the damage from Mercedes, but it has been pushed into the pit lane. So they will, I think, be able to get it to the garage at the very least, so they can have a look at the damage and work out what's going on. But yeah, fascinating to see that car being lifted off the back of that flatbed. And just looking at what Ferrari are up to at the moment with Charles Leclerc's car. What are they up to?
Well, Jenny, they're moving the cars back to how they were when we first started this race. We first just noticed Sainz now back in front of Max Verstappen, the Red Bull in front, the Ferrari back in front of the Red Bull. Hamilton's car as well being wheeled back by his engineers as Leclerc gets moved forward. So, Jolie, it looks like the FIA and the race direction are planning to restart this race from the order they qualified. We are, though, now seeing first images of the recovery tractor seeing to Zhou Guanyu's Alfa Romeo, which is now the right way round, right up against the barrier, across the gravel on the exit of turn 1, and about to be moved away. But just from the shots we're seeing, it looks like a fair bit of damage. It's facing the wrong way.
Yeah, the car looks like it's heavily damaged. The barriers don't look too bad as they are. They're obviously, I'm sure they've been worked on for a while anyway, whilst they've been taking Zhou out of the car and then putting it back together. We're going to look at the race start now then. So it's George Russell in 8th, and he gets a bad start from the inside on his hard tyres. That's maybe to be expected. Latifi actually goes straight between Russell and Zhou. Oh, there's contact. Tsunoda touches Russell. Russell then goes straight into Zhou, who goes upside down to the barriers and then flips down over the top of the barriers and touches the fencing on the other side. So Zhou actually skips over the top of the barriers, doesn't make it as far as the grandstand, thankfully, which is further away. And it was just a little hop as they went upside down, and then it just flicked him over the top. One glancing bounce on the barrier, and he cleared it and went towards the fence on the other side, which thankfully stopped him going any further. Horrible, horrible impact.
That is one of the biggest crashes I think I've seen in a long while in Formula One. Zhou Guanyu, they're going upside down as we now ride on board with George Russell. So really it's a tap with Tsunoda, and Zhou Guanyu is the innocent victim in that, who is just as a consequence of Russell spinning after a tap on the rear. Tsunoda manages to keep going in the same direction. We now ride on board though with Yuki Tsunoda's teammate Pierre Gasly, who is just behind this.
Gasly who hits him. It's not Tsunoda.
It's not.
So Tsunoda has a different impact. It's Gasly then that touches. He gets sandwiched between Russell and Zhou, and Gasly causes it, not Tsunoda. So Tsunoda has his own incident with Albon then on the inside somewhere, riding on board with Lance Stroll on another replay. Now we'll see what can happen on the inside. Stroll avoids it. Albon's out of control, and he swipes Esteban Ocon.
Yeah, well, a huge incident has caused a red flag here after 4 corners of the first lap. Zhou Guanyu spearing off into the wall after contact with Britain's George Russell in the Mercedes. Pierre Gasly, the Frenchman in the AlphaTauri, involved in that as well. And then a separate incident between the Aston Martin of Sebastian Vettel, which took out Alex Albon. Zhou Guanyu upside down in the wall. He has been extracted from that car, but talk us through what happened, Jolyon Palmer, former Renault Formula One driver.
There were 2 incidents. First of all, Pierre Gasly was sandwiched between Zhou and George Russell. Russell then was touched first, then pivoted into Zhou, who went upside down, bounced actually over the barrier towards the fence and came to rest there. And that was part of the accident. The other part was Sebastian Vettel actually rear-ended Alex Albon, which knocked the Williams driver completely out of control. He then swiped across the rest of the track, had contact with Esteban Ocon and presumably Yuki Tsunoda in there, and Vettel would have had damage on his Aston Martin as well. So there are actually 2 separate incidents. The big one for Zhou, which was with George Russell, instigated by Pierre Gasly sticking a nose in the AlphaTauri, and then there was an avoiding accident, which was equally quite big, maybe not as dramatic, but it took out another 3 or 4 cars. So there's stricken cars and there's cars that have managed to hobble back.
So,
well, still under red flag conditions here at the British Grand Prix. Back to you, Gigi.
So Joe is okay.
Thanks.
Well, first time we're seeing the incident in proper, and, well, a lot of cars involved in that, and separate incidents happening at the same time, causing absolute carnage going down into turn 1, Jenny.
Yeah, I'm just looking at that crash again, and we've seen two relatively large crashes this weekend, one in the Formula 2 race and obviously this one in Formula 1, and we once again have to say that the halo has been a wonderful invention and something that has dramatically changed the fortunes of F1 drivers these days. The FIA, as I say, always looking to tirelessly improve standards, and there were doubters when the halo was first brought in. It was a question of is this the right thing for Formula 1? It removes the fans and us from being able to see the drivers, but there is no doubt, as we saw the Alfa Romeo of Zhou Guanyu there, upside down at a terrifying speed going towards the barrier, that the halo has saved multiple lives now, and we can only be thankful of that, and we wish Zhou the very best at the moment. We're all thinking of him.
We certainly do. The question, I suppose, Jolene, is it's such a huge incident, though, for Zhou Guanyu, digging into the gravel, then going upside down, and then jumping over the tyre barrier. You don't see that too often in this generation of Formula 1.
No, I guess the question is, why did he flip over the barrier? That's a question. I mean, it remains... I mean, we had a nasty incident in Formula 2 where the halo looks like it was very useful with a nasty launching incident into Club Corner earlier on. With this one, it's surprising to see a car upside down and then flick with the launch that Zhou had, and he cleared the barriers, basically, which Formula 1 safety has come on leaps and bounds, and with every incident there is research into it and there's further progress. But I can't remember too many incidents, or any real incidents, where a car's been upside down, and you do flick around in the gravel a little bit as parts of your car can dig in. But to be coming in and then flick so high that you actually clear the barriers quite a long way from the track, I haven't seen one like that before, and it's no wonder then that the extraction team took a long time to get to him, because he was actually over the tyre wall and leaning up against just a metal fence.
The only times I can think of where a similar incident has occurred, although I don't think any of them have been as ferocious as the one we witnessed Zhou Guanyu go through, was, if we look a few years ago, Nico Hülkenberg in the Renault, upside down in Abu Dhabi. I think Pascal Wehrlein once in Monaco up against the wall in the approach to the tunnel. And then Alonso, way back in Australia, had a huge shunt back in his McLaren days, upside down, rolling multiple times, and that really damaged the car.
Yeah, in Formula 1 history, cars go upside down. In any motorsport category, cars can go upside down, and we've seen it time and time again, but it's upside down and then flipping so ferociously round that a car has cleared the barrier when it's just been rolling along the ground as a first part of incident. I mean, when you look at the Alonso one in Melbourne, for example, he was launched in the air. Mark Webber had a huge one in Valencia. It was he took off like a plane when he hit the back of Heikki Kovalainen and was immediately launched. But this one was a car rolling along the ground and then dug into the gravel, and that's what flicked him over the barrier. So it's great news that Zhou seems to be okay and is out of the car in the medical centre and having some treatment now. But I'm sure there'll be a look at what's gone on there, because you hate to see the barriers are there for safety. They've come on, you know, in their own innovation. We talk about the halo, we talk about seatbelts, fireproof clothing. The barriers have come on a long way as well, but they're there for a purpose, and a car flipping over them, it creates its own safety concerns.
Well, Jenny Gao has got more news from the pit lane.
Yeah, I do. The FIA and F1 have issued a couple of statements, so I'll read them out to you. The first is the F1 advises that following the incident at the start of the race, emergency crews are immediately in attendance, and the drivers of car 23, that's Alex Albon at Williams, and car 24, that's Zhou Guanyu at Alfa Romeo, have been taken to the medical centre. Both drivers were conscious and will be evaluated at the medical centre, and further updates will be given in due course. I've just spoken to the manager of Zhou Guanyu. I didn't really speak to him. We just had eye contact in the pit lane, and also to the press manager at Alfa Romeo, and he gave me a sort of thumbs up and okay. So that's positive news about Zhou Guanyu from the team, although no official statement. And FIA go on to say, we also confirmed that after the red flag, several people attempted to enter the track. Those people were immediately removed and the matter is now being dealt with by the local authorities. There were threats of a protest going into this race, so it seems like that red flag was the opportunity they took to go onto the track, and F1 has dealt with that immediately.
Thanks, Jenny. Down in the paddock, getting all the latest at the moment. Still red flags, but the grandstand's still full as we wait to hopefully get some track action underway in the not too distant future. But it does seem like they are going back to how they started this race, Jolene, with Max Verstappen being swapped around back again. So Carlos Sainz, I think, will start this race from pole position when we do get underway again. Interesting
decision. I don't know if that's necessarily the case yet. We'll wait and see how they line up. Just in a graphic that says he's now second when he started first. Looking in the pit lane, which car was behind him?
It did look like a Red Bull, so we definitely saw them being swapped around at one point, with Sainz being pushed back in front of Verstappen, but now it might be the other way around. We'll try and get a clearer image for you when we can, but still, Fernando Alonso in the Alpine sat, arms folded in his garage. Doesn't look like he's going anywhere anytime soon.
No, it's still red flag. Hopefully we can get going soon again. I think it should be said, the fence that eventually caught Zhou was a FIA spec debris fence, so that part did its job as well. It was just the tyre barrier that was leaped over, the debris fence there to catch debris and stop it going in the crowd, and on this occasion it stopped the whole car with driver in it just going to the crowd, so that was pretty strong. And I guess they need to repair the tyre barrier because they didn't actually collect anyone on this occasion. Maybe it's the debris fence that they're working on now beyond that. And Esteban Ocon, Fernando Alonso's team, was just applauding his mechanics there because I think he's going to be back in this race. They've had plenty of time now, the Alpine crew, the AlphaTauri crew as well. Presumably not just for Tsunoda, but also Gasly, who was in 11th place, must have had some level of damage, as would Vettel for causing those incidents. All of those cars can get back out there and they've had time to repair, so I think we're going to see probably a restart with no Albon or Zhou and no Russell as well, much to his disappointment, but everyone else possibly could take the start. It's surprising for me that Sainz would go back on pole.
Well, the argument, I suppose, is they only had 4 corners and they didn't even complete a full lap, so is that perhaps an argument if it does turn out to be that case?
Well, I'm just thinking back to Jeddah last year, where it was a very similar situation. Now, I wonder if in Jeddah, if all the cars had got through Sector 1 before the red flag was flown, and that's the reason that they had that order rather than just going on the mini sectors. But there was an order established, which I think should be the where they take it from. If you can establish an order, and maybe there was too much debate about who was where, and it was all very bunched up through turns 3 and 4. I'm surprised, and it had worked out nicely for Verstappen. Those soft tyres had done the job. Verstappen launched into the lead, and then he could have changed off those soft tyres, which wouldn't have been good for the longer duration of the Grand Prix. But it hasn't worked out if he's now back into second place.
Well, we heard Leclerc's team radio earlier on saying that he was pretty much ahead of Hamilton, but then I think as soon as the red flag flew, Hamilton just acted as if he wasn't there and came through on him. So maybe there's, as you say, a bit of miscommunication about who was where in those first couple of corners.
The Leclerc radio wasn't that. He thought he was forced off by Hamilton at turn 3. It was a different one. Hamilton actually passed Leclerc off the line, passed Perez, passed Leclerc, split through the 2, had a great start. Leclerc came back at him at turn 3, and then Leclerc was on the radio saying he was forced off by Lewis Hamilton, who drove like he wasn't there. From the replay that I saw, I didn't think there was much in it. Leclerc did go wide on the exit of 3, but I think Hamilton wasn't there, squeezing him all the way off the road. We didn't get another angle of it to clarify. And then they fought side by side through turn 4 as well, and Hamilton managed to just about keep the position, but it looks like it was all a little bit fruitless for him because he's now down to 5th again.
Yeah, well, the track sweepers are there on the exit at turn 1 at the moment, and just getting another helicopter view of the incident there and following Zhou Guanyu. So he dips into that final bit of gravel before the wall and then flips over, and for those people in the grandstands just behind, I think they would have been up on their feet at one point. The sound you're hearing is on board with Kevin Magnussen, who just about avoided all the melee. He was right on the inside, and slamming on the brake pedal managed to keep him out of trouble as it all unfolded in front of him.
That debris fencing has some strength. It was right on the top of it as well that Zhou hit. There was a grandstand behind. That could have been horrendous, but the debris fencing really strong then to stop the 800 kilo Formula 1 car. I mean, some strength there for that to do its job. This is the onboard from Zhou. You can hear him. He doesn't get a good start. The rear tyre's just juddering as he's trying to get grip. Bam! Contact from Russell. He goes upside down, and then he's bouncing through the gravel. One big flip, and it's right on the top of the debris fencing, which just holds firm, and it keeps him in the confines of the racetrack. Thank goodness.
That catch fencing, as you say, doing an absolutely marvellous job on board with Yuki Tsunoda, is the sound you're hearing in the Alpha Tauri, as he again watched it all unfold, and then he is a victim of Alex Albon spearing across the track right in front of him. Not a lot Tsunoda could do in that situation, with damage to his front wing and definitely his front left tyre and suspension too, as he tries to navigate his way through turn one. He did make it back to the pit lane in the end.
Albon did take a real big whack from pretty much all corners, and it started with this car that you can hear now, Vettel. Maybe a little bit distracted by Tsunoda, in fact darting to the right to avoid the contact. He then rams Alex Albon, flicks Albon into the inside wall, then Albon cuts across all the cars, hits Ocon hard and hits Tsunoda hard as well. This is the sound of the Williams.
On board with Alex Albon, darts to the right to avoid the carnage that he can seize, and then, well, he's a passenger after that. It gets a hit from the left, a hit from the right, hands off the wheel sensibly, and then comes to a halt. And yeah, as you say, all four corners of that Williams taking a hit on a weekend where they bring a full upgrade package on Alex Albon's car. Not the start to this race they wanted. We were riding on board with Zhou Guanyu a few moments ago. It was a poor start from him anyway. It looked like the Williams of Nicholas Latifi got an absolutely mega start to get in front of Zhou Guanyu going into turn one. That meant he avoided all the carnage, and we're currently seeing images of the stricken Williams of Albon covered up and being put back into that Williams garage by the mechanics. Jenny Gao.
Yeah, I'm just down looking onto the pit wall where Toto Wolff, the boss of Mercedes Motorsport, has now come out. George Russell was down there as well a few moments ago having a conversation with the team, and all the drivers kind of just kicking about down here. A lot of people with their arms crossed just looking to see what the latest news is. The Aston Martin team, who are now bringing up the rear at the end of this queue of cars at the pit lane. Just sitting on the side in the sunshine, just waiting for news, waiting for any more details. And yeah, the sign still saying session suspended, but the grandstand's still absolutely full of fans. No one has moved a muscle. It's actually been a very respectful crowd during these moments where people didn't know exactly what was going on. And as ever, the British Grand Prix crowd here at Silverstone, all 126,000 of them, I think, have been impeccable.
Yeah, and the sun is shining at least, so we're not under threat of any rain at the moment. The clouds gathering, but it's a fairly pleasant day here in Silverstone in Northamptonshire, the legendary track, the home of British motorsport, as the grandstands, as Jenny says, absolutely full, as Lando Norris and team principal Andreas Seidel liaise in the McLaren garage. And we did get another view of the pit lane and the order of how it is registered at the moment. Sainz in front of Verstappen, and Hamilton being moved back behind Leclerc. So it does seem like that's the way they're going to go. Leclerc back inside the cockpit of his Ferrari.
Still no sign of the restart. Maybe Ferrari have heard something, because Leclerc is getting back in. The steering wheel being reattached now, and Charles getting ready for a restart. Now, with the rules, there's Article 57.3 of the sporting regs says in all cases the order will be taken at the last point at which it was possible to determine the position of all cars. All such cars will then be permitted to resume the sprint session or race.
Beatul update from medical center. So Joe is conscious. He's talking. There is no fractures, and considering the circumstances, he is pretty good, pretty well.
Well, that is good news to hear from Valtteri Bottas's engineer in Alfa Romeo. All things considering, doing well, Zhou Guanyu, and on his way to in the ambulance to the medical centre and being seen to.
Yeah, that's good news. That's what we all want to hear after a scary-looking incident. Good for Valtteri Bottas as well, his teammate, to just have that reassurance over the radio, which I'm sure all the drivers will be passed on. That information, and it's good to know when you got to restart and you got to go through that exact process again, starting on the grid and lights out with all the cars there still together. I say all the cars, it'll be 17 cars, I think, because Zhou clearly won't restart. Albon is also going for precautionary checks in the medical centre after a big whack, and George Russell frustrated but out of the Grand Prix. Ocon looks okay. Tsunoda looking very zen, propped up against the pit wall, turned up to the pit lane a while ago now, 40 minutes ago, with a pretty hobbled AlphaTauri, but they've done their work and he's going to be going again. So we're going to get 17 cars back in this. And I guess with the starting order, they decided that not all cars got through one of the timing loops. Therefore, the only last time that they could do it was the grid, where they had an absolute order. It's surprising, but it was 21 seconds that the race was underway for, and in that time, not all cars managed to go through a timing loop to absolutely determine the order. They did in Jeddah apparently last year, but this year not the case. And I think Carlos Sainz has a massive reprieve with that, because he lost the lead and Verstappen could feel just a little bit hard done by that.
Carlos Sainz gets a second bite at the cherry then, as we hopefully get underway shortly. Still no signs of when that might be. Sebastian Vettel not in his car, and having a chat with his engineers outside of Aston Martin as he walks and meanders around the pit lane. Lewis Hamilton on his scooter going up and down the pit lane back to his car and garage 2. So still a lot of drivers out of their cars. So Charles Leclerc has gone early to get inside that cockpit. Maybe he feels more in the zone if he sat in his cockpit. Would you feel more? Would you want to wait in your cockpit, or prefer just to be ambling about all like Yuki Tsunoda, sitting on the side, eyes closed?
I suffer from mild claustrophobia, Harry.
And you are a Formula 1 driver?
Well, when you're going fast, you don't notice it. But when you're stationary and you are strapped into a seat that is fitted to your body, is moulded to the contours of your body, you then have your seatbelts on, and you basically can't move at all. So I would have been out of the car until the last possible moment. But we have just got news that the 10-minute sign is up. 10 minutes time until the race will resume. So Leclerc ahead of the game, but now everyone else has got to copy him back in the cars.
Yep, 10 minutes to go. Race will resume at 15:56 local time. So we've had that red flag for, well, over 40 minutes for sure. So it's been a long red flag session before we even really gotten underway. It looks like the grid will be reset as best it can to how it was after qualifying. George Russell, Zhou Guanyu and Alex Albon won't be taking part, sustaining too much damage. Zhou Guanyu with a huge crash going upside down over the Armco barrier and into the catch fencing in his Alfa Romeo. He has been extracted, taken to the medical centre, and is being seen to, and reports from Alfa Romeo and the team saying that all things considered he's doing okay, and currently undergoing checks, as is Alex Albon, who also suffered in a separate incident with Sebastian Vettel's Aston Martin going into the back of him approaching turn 1, and that was the result. Albon spearing over at the track and getting a hit from all four sides, and that Williams completely ruined. Not the start he would have wanted. Max Verstappen, though, was able to get into the lead, but he will feel a bit hard done by. But I suppose there's a case, Jolene, isn't there? Well, he can't think about it too much. He has to be able to get over that fairly quickly, and he knows that he can do it again if he has to.
Does he?
He's Max Verstappen. He surely thinks that.
What, he just take the lead of the race at will? He'd done it. He'd done the hard bit. He's in what we think is probably the fastest race car today, and he had the lead of the Grand Prix. And the big question, Harry, is what do they do on strategy now? Red Bull had that up their sleeve, didn't they? The soft tyre. We haven't seen divergence on tyre strategy really this whole year with the drivers at the front. It's something they've been able to do since they scrapped the Q2 tyre rule that needed scrapping, I think, but it hasn't quite spiced things up as much as we hoped. Today it had. Verstappen and Red Bull went for the softs. All the major contenders around them went for mediums, apart from Russell down in 8th on the hard. But now they've played that hand. Do they go again? Do they stick to their guns, go the soft tyres and make it work again? Do Ferrari think about the softs to switch, having seen the grip that Verstappen had off the line? Latifi as well side through on his soft tyres. Or do they stick to their guns and say, no, mediums are the better tyre strategy. We'll just play it like that again. The softs will go away. Maybe we give Verstappen the lead, but we play the long game with him.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how that unfolds. On the initial starting grid, as you say, Verstappen was on the soft, so was Magnussen, so was Vettel, and so was Albon, but he's now out of this race. So the majority of the runners using that harder medium compound tyre. So I always wonder, when you're in the minority, do you suddenly think, oh, right, have we gone the wrong way here? Because the majority of the grid have gone for the medium.
Well, it's a tactical choice. Let's ignore the guys at the back. They're trying to do something a little bit different, and that's why you saw quite a few on soft tyres back there. The rest of it, it's a choice based on where you are. And so far this season, we've seen teams just go with what's the best race strategy, and we'll just concentrate on our races rather than the raceability of others around. But here, Verstappen and Red Bull clearly were looking to Ferrari, and they were clearly thinking, we have a better car, we have a faster car, we need to just clear the Ferrari and we can go and win the race. They did that by going on the soft tyre. Now the soft tyre is going to go away quicker than the medium, so he would then maybe have had to make that tyre last, and it's got its own problems. But in the short term, they made it work. What would you do then if you were on the pit wall for Ferrari or Red Bull? What are you going for? Now we've got a blank canvas again.
We have got a blank canvas, but we haven't got very far into the race initially. The initial grip, as you alluded to, from Verstappen off the line in the soft, seems at the start team tyre might well be more beneficial with the soft, but also I think I would still stick with the mediums just to go that little bit longer in this first session, or this restart, just under 6 minutes to go. And I think I'd go with what the majority are already doing. You're the F1 driver.
I'm not the strategist, I'm the driver, but the ex-driver. But I think the problem is for Ferrari, if they stick Sainz on the soft to try and cover off Verstappen, if Verstappen goes on the mediums, they are in trouble with Sainz. They've lost any level of strategy with him. So they can't. It's a really brave call for Ferrari to go on the soft. Verstappen can do that. He can go a little bit more punchy with the soft tyre, because he knows that he can get in the lead there. If he goes soft and Sainz is soft, then that's worked out nicely for Ferrari, I think. But I just think if Sainz went soft and Red Bull were on the mediums there, then they just hobbled Sainz's race early on just to try and protect his pole position, because you've got to assume, like for like on the tyres, you can hold ground, you can hold station, even if other drivers behind struggled to do that, with Hamilton coming past both Leclerc and Perez.
I wonder if Ferrari might go for that gamble, actually, because, and we've had this debate all weekend long, haven't we? You know, if Sainz and Leclerc are battling up front and Sainz is ahead, he's much further back in the championship, fifth compared to Leclerc third, but Leclerc got 49 points back compared to Sainz, who's well off. Is this a chance now where they can actually play the strategy game and give Leclerc a different strategy, or change tyres for Sainz? Because then, then it becomes a strategy call where they can make team decisions on track. And Leclerc coming into this race saying, well, I expect and I imagine Ferrari will make the right call and they will swap the cars if we are battling on track.
I think they will do that if they want to, but they can't do that if they've got Verstappen between them. But if they've got Sainz just ahead of Leclerc, I think they can swap. And clearly for Ferrari, it's more beneficial that Leclerc scores the big points than Sainz, as well as Sainz has done this weekend, taking pole yesterday. Leclerc is their man for a championship run, if he possibly can. I mean, 49 points is a long way to try and make up, but it's better than being Sainz and another load down, 24 points behind his teammate. And Leclerc's been the form driver at Ferrari. So do they stick Leclerc on a soft tyre? Then what about Perez? You've got Perez there back and forth now. So it's a game of bluff and double bluff, and we will see very shortly what the drivers choose to do. 3.5 minutes until we're going to get going again.
Yeah, the red flag would have lasted for 53 minutes, almost an hour by the time we get going again. The compounds used this weekend 2 steps harder than the 3 previous race events as well. So high degradation expected and occurring around this track. And talk of Sergio Perez, he's always been renowned for being the tyre master, really, but this track for Sergio Perez has not been good to him. He's never started higher than 12th before, so this is actually his best starting position too. So can Perez play a game here? It's going to be tough to play the team game because he's well off Verstappen.
Well, he's back in the mix if they've gone back to original starting order. He was out of this with the way that he started the race. Hamilton coming through, Alonso passing him as well. Perez down to 6th with Verstappen at the front. He's in trouble there. So Perez has got a reprieve here, back into 4th place, we believe, for the grid. And this whole Perez is the tyre whisperer thing, I don't think it's been right this year. He's struggled on the tyres more than his teammate, I think. Thinking back to Monaco, where he was really on the defensive later on. Baku, Verstappen waltzed away, having passed Perez and then won it easily, with Perez struggling for tyre wear, having out-qualified Verstappen on the Saturday. So Perez it seems more regular this year. He seems quicker in qualifying, but slower in the race compared to the last decade of Sergio Perez. from 4th place, he can still be a fixture though in race pace. Just got to medal with those Ferraris and help the team out.
Just looking at some possible race strategies for you. So before we had the red flag, the strategy was clear. It was a 2-stop, which would have been the quickest way to get around this racetrack. So you go on the mediums for 14 to 22 laps. So a really big pit window, depending on what you want to do. Then onto a hard tyre till lap 32 for 39, and then back onto a medium to get you to the end. If you did want to try just doing 1 stop, then you would have gone to between lap 21 and 27 on the medium tyre and then flip over to the hard tyre. So what we might see some people doing is having a bit of a gamble. Start on the medium, see how long you can go, push and push and push, and then if you can convert this race from a 2-stop into a 1 and have a decent tyre at the end of it, that could be an interesting way to go as well. But as you say, lots of nuance to this. And that all depends on what tyres the drivers have available to them as well, because it might be slightly different. But race is getting underway in less than a minute now.
It certainly is, and confirmation of how they will line up on the grid. They will take it from where the drivers crossed that first timing beam. So we'll wait to see where that exactly puts everybody. It certainly does switch things around a bit, but there's going to be gaps on the grid as well, I imagine, or they'll just shuffle everybody up.
Yeah, they'll shuffle everyone up. Sainz is definitely back into first spot, pole position back on the grid. He's got Verstappen behind him coming out of the pits. Further back, I guess they had more time to shuffle around positions before they got to that first timing beam. Maybe around they've got a safety car line on the exit of the pit lane where they could have maybe taken a time from. No, because Verstappen would have been ahead, so it must be before. It must be pretty much the front of the grid then. So I imagine it's going to be fairly much like the first start. Let's wait and see where Hamilton is as well. Is he going to be back behind yeah, he's back behind Leclerc 3rd and Perez 4th. So it is pretty much as you were for the first start.
It is, as the safety car leaves the pit lane, followed by the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz and then the Red Bull of Max Verstappen to get this race back underway. Of course, we will lose George Russell, Zhou Guanyu and Alex Albon. I think great work has to be said from the Alpine team. Esteban Ocon, Alpha Tauri's Yuki Tsunoda. Looks like they've managed to get those cars fixed up. Yeah, Gasly, I imagine, suffering issues as well involved in that starting incident, all registering as coming out of the pit lane. So good to see those drivers back in it and ready to restart.
And it will be a standing start. We have confirmation, and everyone's on the medium tyres this time, Harry. Verstappen back on the mediums. The Ferraris stick to the mediums. Alonso out of the pits. He's now unfortunately shuffled back down to 7th position for him, having made that good start on the mediums. Hamilton on the mediums. It is at the front, all on the mediums, which, hey, they've taken your approach to go with the masses.
I think I'm in the wrong job. I should be down on the pit wall. Clearly, Nicholas Latifi, though, he's on the soft. He made a good start, but Williams and Latifi not really in the battle up front. But certainly, for that kind of team and driver, worth trying something different. It will be, as you say, Jolien, a standing start. So the safety car will peel off and Carlos Sainz will lead them onto the grid, ready to go again. 17 cars will start this race after losing 3. Although we're pleased that Zhou Guanyu was able to be extracted from his Alfa Romeo and taken to medical care and is being seen to. It will be the original grid as it stood. So I think the mystery surrounding the timing beam, I think, has been cleared up. It will be the original grid. So does that then mean there will be gaps if it's the original grid?
I still think they'll be shuffled up. I think it's the original grid order, but the gaps will be closed, and there'll be 3 cars not starting. Russell out of 8th, Zhou out of 9th, and Albon out of 16th position. And I think they will then have the top 17 grid spots, rather than have gaps in there.
Well, the fans up on their feet, waving and celebrating once more, and they've been waiting almost an hour to get this back underway. Thank you for your company as well. Restart about to get underway. It will be as they started initially, as Carlos Sainz makes his way onto the grid. We initially got this race started, but a big incident into turn one, and Zhou Guanyu in the Alfa Romeo being speared across the gravel and over the fencing and being held in the catch fencing. He's been extracted from his car. We've also lost George Russell, Alex Albon in that melee as well. So it will be 17 cars lining up on this grid, losing 3 in their original grid order, as Carlos Sainz and Max Verstappen, Jolyon Palmer, former Renault Formula 1 driver, line up in P1 and P2.
So it's go again for Max Verstappen, but this time the strategy's taken out of it. They've been able to change tyres. Verstappen used the soft tyres last time to leapfrog the Ferrari off the line and take the lead. This time he's gone for the more durable medium tyre, so it's like for like at the front. The guys behind just on the mediums as well, so it's all the same. It's going to be a closer start then.
Jenny Gow's down in the pit lane, down in the paddock.
Not all cars had passed the safety car 2 line before the red flag. That's why they reline up in their original starting order, -3 cars.
Thanks, Jenny. Well, Lance Stroll at the back, lines up. Carlos Sainz on pole position. It's all eyes to the lights and foot to the floor as we go racing once more in Silverstone. This time, Sainz cuts across defensively and aggressively into turn one, just about holding on in front of Max Verstappen, who's going to have to be shuffled round the outside. Sergio Perez in the second Red Bull fancies a sniff of this as well, coming into Village. Sainz, though, this time holds on to the lead, but he's gone deep, and there's an incident between Charles Leclerc and Sergio Perez, who come very close. There's contact as the McLaren of Lando Norris goes side by side with Lewis Hamilton down the Wellington Straight now. Contact, though, resulting in debris flying off of that Ferrari of Leclerc, who now fancies a go around the outside into Brooklands with Max Verstappen. There's more contact. They touch, they carry on. Leclerc skirting off the tarmac briefly, but back on again. Lando Norris is trying to find a way around the outside of Lewis Hamilton. Norris has the edge at the moment, but Carlos Sainz out and away at the front ahead of Verstappen.
Both Ferraris very aggressive. Debris from Sergio Perez. Front wing is broken, and that was in contact with Charles Leclerc, who was so aggressive in those opening corners. Perez did him off the line. Verstappen was all over the back of Sainz. Sainz cut to the inside, tried to cut him off. They went side by side through the first corner, and Sainz just managed to hold in, kept his foot in, much like Verstappen against Hamilton last year. Then Leclerc fancied a bite back at Perez, launched to the inside at turn 4. They had contact. Perez has front wing damage, but he's still running in 4th. Leclerc then tried to have a run at Verstappen. They went side by side at Brooklands. I don't know if there was contact there or if Leclerc was just shuffled a little bit wide. And they're back as they started the race, the top 4.
The Alpine also further back in the pack, having a go on the Alpha Tauri. That is Fernando Alonso doing battle with Pierre Gasly. We start lap 4 of this race now after the restart. Carlos Sainz a second the gap between him and reigning champion and current leader in the standings, Max Verstappen. Charles Leclerc is 3rd, Sergio Perez 4th, Norris 5th, Hamilton 6th, Gasly 7th, Alonso 8th, Tsunoda 9th, and Ocon getting up into the top 10. Latifi losing ground as well, having started from inside that top 10 for the first time in his career.
It's not worked out well for Lewis Hamilton then. Was 3rd after the first start. Now he's down to 6th. It was a really nice move from Lando Norris. Went around the outside of him at Luffield and managed to get the drive down towards Copse Corner. So Norris in the McLaren up into 5th, ahead of Lewis Hamilton. And then Pierre Gasly and the soft tyres in the AlphaTauri. Once again, they've worked off the line. And Gasly's got ahead of Fernando Alonso. So he's another one who's lost out. He was 5th after the first start. Now he's down in 8th.
Moves further back in the pack as well. The Alfa Romeo of Valtteri Bottas and the McLaren of Daniel Ricciardo were doing battle. Bottas winning that one out, and also a move for 16th right in the back. Mick Schumacher gets ahead of the Aston Martin of Lance Stroll. But Carlos Sainz certainly learning the lessons from that first restart, leading now by 1.2 seconds from Max Verstappen. So he was so aggressive coming across into turn 1, and that just put Verstappen well offline and even allowed Perez a little sniff at it.
Yeah, Verstappen had to lump a load of apex curb at the first corner as well to avoid collision with Sainz, who was really, really aggressive. It was actually Verstappen from 2nd who had the better start again. He blitzed past Sainz on the first start on the soft tyres. This time they were both on mediums, and it was still Max coming alongside Carlos Sainz on the inside of turn 1, but Sainz didn't yield, fought it really hard, and he's managed to keep the lead as a result of that. 1.3 seconds clear of Verstappen. Leclerc then put Verstappen under a big pressure, and that's why I think Sainz has a little bit of a breather for now. The top 3 going away, and Perez with damage, I think, is struggling for pace. He's got Norris right behind him, and DRS is enabled.
Lap 5 of 52 of the British Grand Prix. Carlos Sainz leads ahead of Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc. Back to you, Gigi.
so. It's Carlos Sainz leading at the moment. Lap 5 of this red flag race as we resume now, and the car's getting very close out there. A really aggressive start from everybody. It feels like that red flag incident just made them all very twitchy, and they carried on very excitable into the restart of this race.
Well, Leclerc certainly getting involved in a few early skirmishes, not afraid to go toe-to-toe with Perez. We're watching this battle currently unfold. Perez, Norris and Hamilton all fighting over 4th place. Here's Leclerc.
He's all okay on the car?
So we lost the right side end plate, front end plate, missing 5 points.
5 points of downforce on the front. I was surprised that Leclerc has managed to carry on without damage, but he clearly has got some damage that's costing him some performance. This is the sound of Lewis Hamilton getting in a slipstream of Norris. Norris tucked in behind Perez as well. This is for 4th place. Perez driving a hobbled Red Bull as well. Leclerc, I think, a little too aggressive early on, and Perez pits with that damage. So Norris released into 4th, and he's going to have Hamilton for company. The two are absolutely nose to tail.
Well, that may have got rid of one, but Norris now has to look in his mirrors because Lewis Hamilton is ready and waiting as they start lap number 6 of 52. Sergio Perez into the pit lane now, and Alonso, Gasly and Tsunoda all make their way through. Hamilton biding his time coming into village as Lando Norris just gets it turned in. He's taking a slightly more defensive line as Lewis Hamilton stalks, ready and waiting. DRS will be activated though as they go down the Wellington Straight.
It's going to be in trouble here. Hamilton with the DRS. Norris has no DRS to defend this time. He's not with Perez, and Hamilton breezes to the inside, takes the place. Cheer from the crowd. It's one Brit overtaking another, but Hamilton ever popular around the Silverstone track, and he's into 4th ahead of Norris.
A battle of the Brits ensuing this time now. Lewis Hamilton through under DRS with 4th place in the bag. He'll now start to focus and look ahead at the slightly, well, stricken Leclerc, who has received a damage after a bit of contact coming into these first few corners. The front wing end plate hanging off of that Ferrari. The gap to Hamilton, 4.9 seconds at the moment. Lewis Hamilton looking in good shape to try and reel in 3rd place, Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari.
He's got more pace than Norris, but Norris is just staying within the DRS zone of Lewis Hamilton down the hangar straight into Stoke. Not under any threat though, and I think Hamilton should just ease away. Lando didn't seem particularly confident fighting the Mercedes yesterday when he was asked about out-qualifying George Russell. He managed to get ahead of Lewis Hamilton at the start this time, but it didn't last for too long there. Hamilton back into 4th. We're going to replay the start. Super aggressive, wasn't he? Sainz straight to the inside, and he just covered Verstappen off. They were very close to touching. That put Verstappen on the back foot because he was horribly to the inside at turn 1. Perez then had a run into turn 3, and then I think Leclerc's very aggressive here with Perez. Perez dives towards the inside, actually squeezes Leclerc. The two go really wheel to wheel up towards the apex, and actually I think it took 2 to tango really there. Perez suddenly dived to the inside, closed the space that was initially there for Leclerc, and basically they bundled together at the apex and both had contact, and Perez has had to pit for repairs. Leclerc has front wing damage, which is costing him downforce, but not a huge amount of performance yet. He's still running with the top 2, and Ferrari not choosing to pit him in.
Sainz still leading this race ahead of Verstappen and Leclerc. Sebastian Vettel has managed to hold on to 12th at the moment, but Jenny's got news.
Yeah, one of the Aston Martins, I thought it was Vettel, just came into the pits on soft tyres, whoever it was. It's really hard to tell the difference sometimes between those two drivers, Stroll and Vettel, as I just eat a piece of my hair, apologies. But came into the pit lane, back out again now for the Aston Martin. And just worth saying, with those Ferraris in that position, what will Ferrari choose to do versus Red Bull? This is a fascinating contest now between this 2 versus 1 sandwich that Verstappen finds himself in.
There was double contact between Perez and Leclerc. They actually touched wheels on the exit of the corner as well, which could have been a lot worse for them, but it was a passing contact that they got away with. Verstappen looks pretty close to Sainz here. Within a second for the first time, he's reeled him in, the race leader. Leclerc at the moment not able to do much with that damage, so Ferrari don't have to think about strategy too much. First of all, they need their lead driver today, Carlos Sainz, to hold the Grand Prix lead.
They do. He's just managed to edge it over about a second now, but it's ebbing and flowing. Verstappen has reeled that in by a few tenths last lap around. Let's see as they go down the Wellington Straight. I think he might have just been within DRS zone. Breaks into Brooklands, but still half a second give or take. Falls back to 8 tenths now. Verstappen hunting down Carlos Sainz for the lead of this race, but it is Red Bull versus Ferrari at the moment, but Ferrari with 2 cars in the game. Now Perez is at the back. back, having pitted, but a Leclerc injured as well with his car.
Yeah, he's still doing okay, Leclerc, but he's not able to run with Sainz and Verstappen quite as close as Verstappen is to the race leader. So Max now within a second. He had DRS down the Wellington straight into Brooklands. He's going to just close in again now. They come out of Beckett's, down towards the hangar straight. Another DRS chance of Verstappen. He's not close enough to the move, but he will close up to the back of the race-leading Ferrari. Leclerc's just nudging towards contention as well, and Sainz just has to hold Verstappen back and give his teammate a chance of meddling there as well.
I think Leclerc is certainly starting to gain ground as we finish lap 8 of 52. It is still Carlos Sainz from pole position after a restarted race, leads from Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc. Hamilton, Norris and Alonso the top 5. Alonso, Gasly, Tsunoda, Ocon, Latifi the top 10. Jenny.
Worth saying that when you come into the pit lane here, you lose about 20 seconds of time to come in, stop the car, all 4 wheels change or tyres change, and then head back out again onto the track. However, if you can do it under a virtual or safety car, it's less than 10 seconds because of the speed of cars on track. You lose less time. So it'll be fascinating to see what they do. Do they try and give some work to Leclerc's car?
He's a bit quicker.
Copy. Everyone can see that. Verstappen is right on the back of Sainz, was almost close enough for a move into Brooklands that time. Now he brushes the gravel coming out at Luffield as well. He's clearly quicker, but he's clearly pushing with it as well. This is the sound on board the Red Bull in second place, homing in on the race leader Carlos Sainz, who is feeling the heat.
Coming through Copse now, approaching the rundown of Maggots and Beckett. Sainz is just within touching distance. We'll see what they're like coming through the next DRS zone. Through Maggots and Beckett they go. Out of Chapel, how good is the run for Max Verstappen? He's still going to get DRS, but I think he's actually just fallen a little bit back through that. He's closing and closing, but he's not close enough.
He had quite an understeery exit of Beckett, just couldn't get the front end in and had to wait for the throttle, so he couldn't have the run he wanted to attack Sainz into Stowe Corner. Leclerc's not really closing in on these two at the moment. He's stabilised on pace and was just half a tenth quicker than his teammate on the last lap. So still 1v1 at the front. Sainz leads from Verstappen. Max still 7 tenths away as they cross the line into very quick Abbey Corner, and then it's into the hairpins. And if Sainz makes one little mistake here, Verstappen will be ready to pounce.
That was the voice of former Formula One driver Jolyon Palmer alongside myself, Harry Benjamin. Jenny Gow is down in the pits for us. You're listening to British Grand Prix coverage on BBC Radio 5 Live, BBC Sounds and BBC Northampton, the BBC Sport website and on the Formula One app. DRS open for Max Verstappen on the approach into Brooklands. He's closing under braking. One mistake from Carlos Sainz, as you say, Jolyon Palmer, is going to unlock Max Verstappen. It's the other way round this time compared to what it was in Montreal a few weeks ago. Approaching Copse, fastest lap for Sergio Perez meanwhile. How close can Verstappen get through Copse?
It's difficult to follow through there, but they are really, really close. Just half a second separated them at the apex of Copse Corner. A very, very quick right-hander. Just a blend out of the throttle, then you can hear them flashing through Maggots. Now the Wiggles, big mistake from Sainz.
Big mistake from Sainz. He goes off into the grass on the exit of Chapel. That's all Verstappen needs. He gets up alongside him and he's through on the hangar straight. He gets DRS for good measure, but Sainz with a swapper on the front end holds it, but has to take to the grass out of Chapel, and he's lost the lead of this race. Max Verstappen now leads as we come to the end of lap 10.
Oh, Carlos. Couldn't take the pressure then from the Red Bull. A mistake, an unforced error from the race leader, and Verstappen now leads. All of that hard defence he did on the first lap of the restart goes to waste. Verstappen was just bearing down on him. He knows how good the Red Bull driver is. He knows how good the Red Bull car is as well. They used to be teammates, but he's just made a big mistake on a crucial corner that leads onto that hangar straight, ran wide, went a little bit off track, grass tracking on the way back, desperate to keep the lead, but Verstappen was too close, and through goes Max to the lead. That's a big mistake from Sainz from the lead there.
Definitely driver mistake.
Yeah, he took an oversteer on the right-hander, and the rear end of the car just snapped at him, had to correct it. That forced him wide, bouncing over the grass, and through goes Verstappen.
And before we know it, Leclerc will be on to the back of him, and he is. Verstappen now leading 1.2 seconds the gap. Jenny.
Yeah, just to bring you in a medical update. So the FIA have said that the driver of car number 24, Zhou Guanyu, is under observation at the medical centre here at Silverstone following a heavy accident at the beginning of this race. Alex Albon has now been transferred by helicopter to Coventry Hospital for precautionary checks. We've seen that George Russell, fine. He has been checked by the medical staff and was declared fit.
Thanks, Jenny. Lap 11, Leclerc closing, coming through Stowe. DRS open for the Monegasque. Now, what are we going to see here? Is it going to be Ferrari team orders as we see Yuki Tsunoda and Pierre Gasly coming together, both spinning around? I think Tsunoda was down on the inside.
Oh no, the two AlphaTauris have come together. Tsunoda was on the inside and he just lost control of the car. He was on the inside, Gasly gave him space. Tsunoda looped it, and as he was spinning, he's hit Gasly as well. And it's the worst thing you could do. Teammates taking each other out. I think they were battling in the top 10 as well. What a disaster.
Gasly now down to 13th, Tsunoda down to 15th. Not what AlphaTauri wanted. Ferrari are going to have some important strategic calls to make. How hard is Sainz going to fight this? Because Leclerc is looking like the faster Ferrari right now as they come on the run down to Copse. Half a second in it. Leclerc all over the back of Carlos Sainz.
Sainz has just got back within a second of Verstappen as well. They're really concertinaing up now, the top three. Sainz not letting Verstappen away. But if I'm Ferrari, I'm telling Sainz to get out the way for Charles Leclerc. Leclerc's got some damage, but he is still managing to reel in his teammate. Sainz has made the big mistake on his own. Well, Verstappen's slowing.
Verstappen is going slow. Once again out through Chapel where Sainz made the mistake a lap ago. Sainz now is side by side. He's going to retake the lead. Coming into the right-hander of Stowe. Sainz has gone through. Verstappen slowing.
Left front takes quite a beating. Yeah, my tyres are not lovely. I think I have a puncture or something.
Puncture for Max Verstappen, who makes it back into the pit lane. Sainz goes through to retake the lead ahead of Leclerc. Jenny Gow is down in the pits for us.
Yeah, Verstappen comes in. I cannot tell you, it was so loud when they were cheering for Verstappen, who had that incident. Verstappen has changed onto another set of the medium tyres, if I can see correctly, and the wheels spin back out. But the reaction here at Silverstone to that misfortune, Verstappen, very, very vocal.
If it's a puncture for Verstappen, it happened at a good time.
Lap 13 of 52 at the British Grand Prix in what has been an action-packed and fascinating race so far. Carlos Sainz was leading at the restart. He then lost the race lead after a mistake. Max Verstappen came through, and then a lap later, Verstappen picking up a puncture. Sainz back through now in the lead. Leclerc behind him in the second Ferrari. Former Grand Prix driver Jolyon Palmer is alongside me for this one.
Yeah, Verstappen ran wide over a curb. Was that the cause of the puncture? He was just looking like he was going to run away with this Grand Prix, but it's gone wrong for him. Puncture, but crucially near the pit lane entry, so he's able to pit at a sensible time without too much time lost. Both Ferraris just swept around him, but he didn't lose a huge amount. The strategy changes. He went medium tyres to medium tyres. He's plunged down the order temporarily, but it's not game over for Verstappen. If the puncture came earlier, he would have lost a heap more time there.
Sainz now through to take the lead ahead of Leclerc as Max Verstappen comes into the pits. That puts Lewis Hamilton up as well into the top spots as we continue around here for the British Grand Prix over to Wimbledon.
He had a big lock-up coming into the pits as well. Verstappen trying to slow down to the pit lane speed limit line, and it was a massive lock-up.
Check the tyres, otherwise there's something in the car. It's still not good.
Understood, Max. We're looking.
Yeah, there's something broken on the rear.
Something broken on the rear, potentially. Max Verstappen not happy in that Red Bull, so maybe it wasn't just a simple case of picking up a puncture.
No, well, that's worst case for him. Then he's come in, taken the pit stop. He's down to 6th position, so Hamilton's through into 3rd, and Hamilton's been flying as well, by the way. Whilst we've been talking about the lead battle, he's only 5 seconds away from the Ferrari still ahead. So Lewis Hamilton having a strong drive in the Mercedes. Norris is now 4th, Alonso 5th, then Verstappen.
Car's 100% broken.
Not what Max Verstappen wanted to be saying on the radio. He's currently in 6th. Sainz leads ahead of Leclerc. Hamilton. Jenny?
Yes, and just having a look at what happened when Verstappen came into the pit lane. Obviously had that big lock-up. Now, that would indicate that someone had a puncture because the brakes are different. But I had a good look at all of the 4 tyres when he came in, and it didn't look like any of them were low. There's 18-inch, very low profile and very stiff tyres this year. And it just didn't look like that was the problem. And obviously, Verstappen reporting that that wasn't the problem. Let's have team radio.
Okay, Max, can confirm it's bodywork damage, loss of rear. It is not critical, so you are able to continue, but you will have a performance loss.
Okay, not critical then for Max Verstappen, but he's clearly not happy in that car. He's pitted down into 6th, but that's not what he really wanted to hear, I suppose. He can keep going, but that Red Bull is going to try and have to work around the problem.
Well, his first sector was actually the quickest of anyone on that lap. His middle sector's not, and that's where the faster corners are, through Cops, Maggots and Beckett. And it obviously was from probably running over the curb. He's damaged a bit of bodywork at the rear of the car, lost some downforce, which in the split second felt like a puncture, and he backed off through the high-speed corners. But not the case maybe for Red Bull then. They've changed their strategy. He's down to 6th with an early pit stop and not driving a car that's fully functional, nor's Leclerc.
Okay, really emphasize me. I'm losing the car everywhere.
You have less rear aerodynamic load, but there's nothing we can do about it. We'll try to correct it at the next stop in terms of balance. But it is not structural, so you are safe to continue.
It's a great radio message. Well, not what someone wants to hear, but it's a great one in terms of clarity of information there to Max. He now knows exactly what he needs to do, and Sainz is having to defend it from Charles Leclerc down towards Stone. No team orders yet at Ferrari. Maybe Verstappen is not in the picture because basically the team's saying you've got damage to the rear bodywork, you've lost downforce, we can't do anything about it, mate, but next time you come in the pits we'll take off some front downforce and balance the car so it's less sketchy through the corners. Basically he's going to have less oversteer when he pits in, but for now he's got to just live with it, and that's what he's doing. Leclerc is breathing down the neck of his teammate. There go the 2 Ferraris through the first corner. This is going to get really, really tight down the Wellington Straight, I think, Harry.
Lap 16 of 52, Carlos Sainz is still leading just ahead of Leclerc. Hamilton in 3rd, just steals the fastest lap back from Leclerc. Norris is 4th, Alonso 5th, Verstappen is 6th, as Sainz now comes on to the Wellington Straight. DRS open for Charles Leclerc behind him. He's closing 0.7 of a second. He's a bit far back coming into the braking zone, but he'll try again in the run down and the exit next of Lufford into Brooklands.
Surprised there's no team orders yet for Ferrari. Leclerc, the main driver in the championship, is really putting Sainz under pressure. Fair play to Ferrari for letting them fight. I criticised Red Bull earlier on for ordering Perez past Verstappen when they were under no threat. Maybe they're under no threat from Verstappen right now. What's Max doing on lap times? He's 1.4 seconds slower than the Ferrari, so at the moment, until they can rebalance the car, he's not finding any pace. The threat right now for Ferrari is coming from Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes. Hamilton at Silverstone is reeling in the race leaders. Fastest lap for him on the last lap, 4/10 quicker, and he's in the back of shot as Sainz is meandering down the Hangar Straight.
What do I need to do? I mean, I'm get my race now.
Copy. I will come back to you.
I think Leclerc on the radio, they're making it clear what he wants to happen. He wants the swap because he's hunting down Sainz, who was weaving on that back straight, trying to break the toe as we start lap 17. Sainz still in front of Leclerc as the fastest lap once again goes to Lewis Hamilton.
0.6 quicker on the last lap, Hamilton, than the race leader, Carlos Sainz. It's the sound of a replay of Leclerc barging into Perez on the opening lap at turn 3. That's what's cost Leclerc some front downforce. Perez pitted with front wing repairs as well. He also took an absolute whack from a bit of, I think was that a bit of Leclerc's car falling off, striking the cockpit area, the halo of Perez. I think it was the front wing end plate has completely come off Leclerc's car. I tell you, he's got tremendous pace considering he's missing the whole front wing end plate.
Now that's interesting, isn't it? Because it was a very similar incident for Kevin Magnussen back in Montreal. He was given the black and orange flag for that one and forced to come in. Leclerc, not so much.
Scary one for the driver behind as well. It really did hit the cockpit side there of Perez. That's why Magnussen got the black and orange last time out, to stop that happening. I guess that came off on the first lap or very early on, so it didn't have a chance to fall off later on. So maybe the FIA is saying, well, it's come off now. There's nothing more to break on the car.
Well, the battle ensues up front. Sainz still fending off Leclerc. Hamilton in 3rd. Jenny, what have you got?
I think this is fascinating because we know Leclerc has dropped down 5 points of downforce. Now, what that relates to, I don't know speed-wise, but it's quite a big hit on the downforce levels, yet he's still pressurising Sainz at the front. Hamilton has a very healthy Mercedes right now and wants to get a...
Sainz has been told that lap time is target is 32.9.
Yeah, but then do something, please. I'm not trying to influence my results. I can't go faster, guys.
Well, Leclerc arguing there with the Ferrari pit wall. Sainz has been told to hit a lap time, and that's what he's doing. And that's, well, Leclerc's not happy about that.
Well, he's not doing it, Harry. He's done a 33.3 last time out, so he's 4 tenths away from the target lap time. Basically, it's a hurry up from Ferrari. They're saying to Carlos Sainz, pick up your pace, because actually we've got a threat from Hamilton behind, who is slowly catching them up. Hamilton was 3 tenths quicker on the last lap than Leclerc. He's only 3.5 seconds away from the second Ferrari, who's right on the tail of the first Ferrari. And Ferrari, by not doing team orders at the moment, full credit to them, letting their drivers race, giving the crowd what they want, giving us all what we want. It's a fight at the moment between them. Doesn't make a lot of sense in their championship, though, with Leclerc so far away from Verstappen. And Hamilton looming large now in the mirrors, the Mercedes, the silver arrows, closing down on the 2 Ferraris. Sainz has to pick up his pace, otherwise he's going to have Hamilton joining the top 3 soon.
Yeah, while they do battle, Hamilton is closing on them, currently in 3rd place with the fastest lap, Jenny.
Yeah, on Max Verstappen, he came in thinking he had a puncture. He didn't have a puncture. There's a problem with the car, so in essence, he's going to have to end up doing an extra pit stop.
It's a good lap. Keep pushing. You are on Hamilton lap times.
Yep.
Being told to keep pushing, he's on Hamilton's lap times. That's the message from the Ferrari pit wall to Carlos Sainz, Julian.
He's not on Hamilton's lap times, though. He's done a 33.1.
So why are they lying
Hamilton
to him?
has just done the fastest lap. He's in the ballpark of Hamilton's lap times, but Lewis with a 32.9, doing what Sainz has been told to target, is another couple of tenths quicker, and that time 4 tenths quicker than Leclerc, 3.2 seconds away. Soon, we're going to have 3 cars for the lead.
You need to push more. You need to push more. Hamilton. Okay.
Well, there you go then. Being told to push more is Carlos Sainz. 6 tenths the gap at the moment. Ebbing and flowing, though, between the 2 scarlet red Ferraris out in front. Sainz leads on lap 19 ahead of Leclerc, Hamilton, Norris, the top 4, Alonso, Verstappen, Ocon, Latifi, Bottas, Ricciardo, the top 10.
Verstappen's drifting away, though. He is drifting away with his damage. He's pitted, which wasn't the worst thing to do at that time. It puts him on a guaranteed long 2-stopper. But it is recoverable. Problem is the pace he's got isn't there. It wasn't a tyre issue. As we've heard, it was a bodywork issue. He's missing some aero parts at the back of his car. He's 2 seconds a lap slower than Hamilton, and he's on fresh tyres in clear air.
So Sainz has been told to push?
Yeah, copy. I try to keep my tires, but I'm just losing race time.
Copy.
Leclerc doesn't understand it, why they're not allowing him through. I mean, how he's got this pace with no front-wing end plate is just staggering, how he's this much quicker than Sainz, able to follow his teammate in the dirty air. He's just crossed the line for the fastest lap, taken immediately by Lewis Hamilton behind. Hamilton 2 tenths quicker than Leclerc, 4 tenths quicker than Sainz. He is closing.
Lewis Hamilton is in with a shot of closing right up to the back of the 2 Ferraris, squabbling over the lead of this race. And if they carry on squabbling, well, it's going to be the Mercedes man fighting for the win of the British Grand Prix. Lewis Hamilton with the fastest lap just a few seconds back, while his teammate George Russell watches on from the garage out of this race early doors. Lap 20. It feels like we've been here a lot longer than just 20 laps because of that 53-minute red flag, but we are back underway. And once again, Leclerc still not through. Pit stops happening. Mick Schumacher's in. Yuki Tsunoda has come in for a second time as well, and that is a set of the hards for Mick Schumacher.
Need to push. I need to push. Lando lap.
Don't tell me again.
Telling Carlos Sainz to push on the radio, but he doesn't want to be told again.
How many times do you need to be told to push when you can do no more? He is pushing. He just isn't quick enough at the moment, Sainz. Latifi pitted as well from the top 10, by the way. He was having a solid drive so far, Nicholas Latifi, in for a stop. Leclerc's very close into Stowe, but not close enough. And Sainz, I think, is going to pit this lap. Comes out of Stowe corner, hangs to the right, and in he comes. Leclerc's released into the race lead.
Now, does that get out Ferrari of making an on-track call here? Let's see how it all unfolds. Sainz comes into the pit lane now. Leclerc will take over the lead of this race ahead of Lewis Hamilton, who will come across the line now. Leclerc hits his markers, coming into his grid spot, into the pit lane, tyres off, changing is the harder compound tyre, and away he goes. Sainz in the pits, I should say. Leclerc leading Hamilton. Sainz pit exit now.
2.5 seconds, it's a good stop from the Ferrari crew. Mediums to hards, switching with the throttle as he's coming out of the pit exit, up the hill to the right-hand side, and he's going to emerge right with Lando Norris, but just ahead of Lando Norris. So Sainz pits and remains in third place. What sort of pace does Leclerc have now? He's in clear air. He's been saying how much quicker he is than his teammate. It looked to be the case when he was able to follow so closely for so long. Now he needs to unleash some pace to try and leapfrog his teammate, otherwise he's going to come up behind him in the second stint.
Yeah, this could solve all his problems, Leclerc, or it could make a million more from him. We'll see how it unfolds. Leclerc out in front, Hamilton second, as Valtteri Bottas in the Alfa Romeo, the only remaining Alfa Romeo, is into the pit lane, and it looks like it might be early doors for the Finnish racer. He's lifted up onto the jacks, and I think that's Bottas out of this race.
Both Alfa Romeos out then. Zhou with the nasty crash at the start, and Valtteri Bottas out on lap 21. Mechanical from him, and he's turned the car off.
Leclerc pushing.
Just a reminder, Leclerc still carrying a little bit of front wing damage.
Leclerc's not all that quick. Hamilton is still reeling him in with no sights there. Let's see, Leclerc comes across the line, did a 33.3. Hamilton's half a second quicker. He's 2.4 seconds off the race lead. With Verstappen now looking like he's fading out of this Grand Prix with damage. Perez had damage in the other Red Bull. Sainz doesn't have a huge amount of pace. Leclerc has damage. Russell's out of this one. Hey presto, Lewis Hamilton is in second, staring down the barrel of a chance to win the British Grand Prix. Who would have thought it?
This is the longest in a season Lewis Hamilton has gone without winning. It was 2009, 2013 where he held that record as well, but then he did win in the 10th race. What race is this? It's race number 10 of the calendar. Hamilton is coming quickly up behind Leclerc. The gap now 2.2 seconds, lap 22 of 52 of this British Grand Prix. Sainz has pitted onto the harder compound tyre from the lead. He's come out in third ahead of Norris and Alonso, the top five. Valtteri Bottas has just retired from this race, both Alphas out.
And if Leclerc pits now, he's going to come out right with Carlos Sainz. They're still going to be line astern. It's going to be touch and go if they try and overcut Leclerc around Sainz. No doubt they pitted Sainz to avoid a team orders question. Hamilton's closing in. Leclerc was just banging on about how he was being held up and wanted the team orders to let Sainz through. Ferrari, instead of doing that, just opted to pit Carlos Sainz from the race lead, and that left Leclerc from Hamilton. But Leclerc's not showing any more pace. He's not able to improve, actually, now his teammate's out of the way, and Hamilton is still bearing down on him. This is a genuine fight for the race lead. Leclerc comes through 32.7. Hamilton, fastest lap of the race, it's a 32.4.
Just nearly under 2 seconds the gap now. Hamilton closing. It was over 3 seconds just a couple of laps ago. He is closing, and he is closing quickly. Lewis Hamilton onto the back of Charles Leclerc. Does this bode a problem for Ferrari too? Because actually Carlos Sainz isn't really showing particular pace. He's on the slower tyre as well, so it's going to be a double knock for Ferrari if Hamilton can just stay out a little bit longer if Leclerc pits before him.
Sainz on the new hard tyres is the same pace as Leclerc, and he's slower than Hamilton. Hamilton is still finding pace on the medium tyres. They're durable enough to keep going on lap 23 of 52. I guess we had a couple of laps knocked off for the restart.
Copy.
Ocon into the pits in the Alpine. He was running in the top 10 as well. Looked a tidy enough stop from Alpine. Ocon, who's fortunate to still be in this Grand Prix when the team did brilliant repairs under the red flag conditions, and he's looking at a points finish possibly for today, although that's just going to knock him towards the edge of the top 10. What did Ferrari do with Leclerc's wing? Do they change the front wing now at the cost of a long pit stop but then have some performance later on? Or do they just say, let's live with it and have a quicker pit stop and keep the track position? That's another thing that they're going to be stewing over on the pit wall.
He's not losing as much time as you'd expect him to, especially with that front wing, but around for another lap they go. Lap 24, Hamilton going faster too, and a much longer pit stop would be required if Leclerc does come in for a front wing change as well as tyres.
Half a second quicker was Lewis Hamilton.
And we need full push, full push.
Full push from the Ferrari pit wall to Leclerc. Jenny?
Yeah, I'm just having a look. This is definitely converted to a one-stop for the drivers out there. Everyone converging on the hard tyre. Now, Red Bull come out into the pit lane. They've got a set of hard tyres there. They're ready to welcome Max Verstappen into the pit lane. So the Red Bull of Max Verstappen, the one with the damage. He didn't like the rear end and how it was feeling, but he's coming into the pit lane now. He'll go onto the hard tyres, but what can they do to get that car feeling better, the balance feeling better? That's the question. Right, he is back out and into this race of Verstappen.
They've got to try and take out some front wing, I think. If he's missing some rear downforce, it'll make it oversteer. You take out some front wing and you can correct the balance, even if you're missing overall performance. But Verstappen, with 2 pit stops in quite quick succession now, is falling down to 7th place. Sebastian Vettel and the Aston Martin go side by side with him into Village Corner. It's not working out for Verstappen, but maybe they can rebalance him and try and get him to the end. Vettel sneaks through and the crowd enjoyed it.
Sebastian Vettel going round in the Aston Martin. That was for 7th. Overall, for the time being, pit stops coming thick and fast here at the British Grand Prix. We're still waiting, though, for our leaders to come in. What are they going to do with Charles Leclerc? Not as fast as Lewis Hamilton, with a damaged front wing too.
Hamilton 3/10 quicker again.
Lap 25 of 52 at the British Grand Prix. Charles Leclerc is leading with a slightly damaged front wing. Lewis Hamilton on home soil is gaining and gaining fast. Faster on that last time around. He currently holds the fastest lap and he is reeling in Leclerc.
No grip.
Former Grand Prix driver Jolyon Palmer alongside me. Max Verstappen, meanwhile, who was leading this race briefly, running into trouble, struggling in that Red Bull.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it was a puncture for Verstappen. He's got a bigger problem with the Red Bull and he's falling out of contention. He's just made a second stop and will not be troubling the race leaders, which includes Lewis Hamilton, who's bearing down on Charles Leclerc now for the race lead. Carlos Sainz has pitted. Ferrari were trying to get him out of the way for Leclerc, their championship charger, to take the lead. Leclerc's not then unleashed a load more pace. Hamilton, would you believe it, at Silverstone, is breathing down the neck of the race lead.
It is getting closer and closer. The Brits second, Lewis Hamilton, Lando Norris in 4th. Back to you, Gigi. That gap is coming down. It's under a second now. If he can maintain it, he will be in that DRS as Leclerc comes into the pit lane. That unleashes Lewis Hamilton to take the lead at the British Grand Prix. Leclerc comes in. What are they going to do? Are they going to risk that front wing change? Jenny Gow's there.
Yes, he flashes past me in his Scarlet Ferrari. He has the medium tyres on at the moment. They have a set of the hard tyres ready to go. So the jump on that car, all hands on deck. It doesn't look like they've done a huge change to it. So no front wing change for Charles Leclerc. He's going to have to live with it. He's going to have to try and battle for the lead of this race with a damage-stricken car, whilst Lewis Hamilton's Mercedes is going to have to try and hunt him down.
Here comes Carlos Sainz and he makes it through on his teammate Leclerc. Comes out in 3rd behind Sainz. They didn't change that front wing. It was a fairly smooth stop.
I don't know why he fit me on these tyres with damage on the car. I'm driving on ice.
Verstappen, by the way, is in 8th, and he's under pressure from Nicholas Latifi in 9th. Latifi's having an absolute blinding drive in the Williams, as a side note to this thrilling British Grand Prix, and that's a story I didn't think was going to happen today. Latifi pressuring Verstappen, who is having a nightmare out there. He's panicking. This was a race that he had under control when he took the move for the race lead on Carlos Sainz, but oh so shortly after, he had damage and he's not able to recover it. He doesn't have the pace.
Lando Norris still holding on in 4th. He hasn't stopped, still going on that medium compound tyre. The sound you're hearing is riding on board with Lewis Hamilton.
Copy, Lewis. So yeah, let's go for it.
And that's not what Ferrari want to hear. Tyre's still good.
And Ferrari then opting not to change the front wing of Charles Leclerc. He had enough pace he was quicker than his teammate on that first stint. So he's got enough pace in the car, but they couldn't afford to take what could be another 10 seconds for a front wing change, because Hamilton simply would have just taken control of the Grand Prix, and the Mercedes has the pace of the Ferrari from what we've seen so far. Now he's got no one ahead of him. The crowd are enjoying it. Hamilton is out front at Silverstone once again, and Leclerc is behind Sainz. Hamilton from Sainz from Leclerc. Norris still hasn't pitted in 4th. Then you got Alonso in 5th. Those two still going long on the medium tyres as well and hanging on in there near their personal best lap times. The mediums don't look like they're dropping away too much. And Ferrari got another decision to make soon, because Leclerc's just a couple of seconds down from his teammate. Are they going to have to to team orders at this time.
The Ferrari squabble about to re-ensue. I can't believe we would be saying this in a commentary in 2022, but these are the first laps Lewis Hamilton has led since the finale last year. Lewis Hamilton with that gap now to Sainz. Still yet to pit though for Lewis Hamilton, Jenny.
Yes, still waiting to see him come into the pit lane, but it looks like that's going to happen. Oh no, they're just moving out of the way because one of the AlphaTauris is coming in to pit. Verstappen's already been in. He started on the softs, race was aborted. Then at the restart, mediums, to another set of mediums, to the hards. He says it feels like he's on ice out there. He is not enjoying this race.
I don't know what happened to the front wing.
Verstappen on the radio, no rear and no front now. He's not happy out there.
So what they've done is probably take out front wing, but it hasn't helped the rear. It's just made the front worse, and now the rear is no better. So the grip level's just gone. He's on hard tyres, which inherently have less grip, and he's got Latifi just behind him in the Williams.
Curiously, both AlphaTauris in with a black and orange flag for Gasly and for Yuki Tsunoda. So clearly damage on those cars having to be replaced as the AlphaTauri spend an age on the pit lane, but back out on track. Fastest lap for Charles Leclerc.
Gasly was going up onto the stands. He's out of the Grand Prix. Another retirement then. Gasly joining Bottas and Russell, Zhou and Albon all out of the race. Tsunoda is off the back of the pack as well. Remember they had the contact together when Tsunoda spun and knocked Gasly into a spin as well. Presumably there was some bodywork coming off, and the AlphaTauri is getting the black and orange. The Leclerc with his front wing damage still able to run.
A battle brewing at the front between the Ferraris. Also a little bit further back, we mentioned Nicholas Latifi having an excellent run in 9th. Esteban Ocon is closing up on him for the minor points placings at the moment. Latifi having an excellent Grand Prix by the Williams standards, and Esteban Ocon lucky to be in this race and still going.
Hamilton's quicker than Sainz. Sainz is on a new hard tyre, and Hamilton 4/10 quicker on the last lap. It's 18 seconds the gap. He's going to come out right now if he were to pit right with Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc. Leclerc's on the back of his teammate, 1 second between the two. Surely Ferrari just now have to accept Sainz will not win this race with the pace that he's got. Leclerc is their hope. Get Sainz out the way and give Leclerc a run to win the Grand Prix. By playing fair early on, it's admirable. It's what everyone wants to see. But it might have really shot themselves in the foot, because Leclerc was held back, was moaning for a long time that it was costing his race time, and it surely was.
Are we fighting? Or not? Just to know for the tires.
So we are right on top of the pit window from Hamilton.
And they're losing out more, another 1/10 and a half. Sainz raised his pace. Leclerc did the fastest lap of the Grand Prix. But Hamilton split the two Ferraris on pace. He was 1/10 and a half quicker than Sainz still, and he hasn't pitted. He's still got some new tyres to go onto, and he's going to be very racy when he does. Leclerc now tucked in behind Sainz with DRS, but there's still no signs of team orders.
And we are free to fight,
Well, free to fight from the Ferrari pit wall to Leclerc there. Ferrari, battle on.
Oh, there's admirable and then there's foolish for Ferrari, and I think this is verging on the foolish. Sainz has already made a big mistake from the lead and let Verstappen through. Now he's costing Leclerc a chance to win the Grand Prix. Hamilton is a genuine threat, and I don't know if Ferrari aren't taking it seriously, or they just wanted to be absolutely genuinely fair to their drivers. It's admirable in many ways. It's what we want to see in many ways, but for Ferrari and what's best for them and their main driver, Charles Leclerc, on a day where Verstappen is going to score minor points, they've got to be looking to maximise what he can score. This is a chance for him to win a Grand Prix, come back into the fight and get it within a one-race win of the championship lead. And with not getting Sainz out of the way, Hamilton is looking like he's becoming maybe the favourite for this race.
Tell you what, this is all playing into the hands of Lewis Hamilton as Esteban Ocon gets in front of Nicholas Latifi for 9th. Jenny.
Yes, I'm equally as conflicted as Jolyon here. I love to see a proper race between drivers, whether they are the same team or not. But at the moment, this is just damaging Ferrari, and they know Leclerc has a damaged car. He can't go at full pace. Maybe that's what's leading them to think they should just be out there fighting. But it's weird, it's hard.
Lap 32.2, otherwise we swap in the cars. Okay, one more lap.
One more lap to try and go quicker for Sainz. He's not done a 32.2, he's done a 32.4. Half a tenth slower than Hamilton, so pretty much matching on pace the two Ferraris this time. And I'm sure there'll be people around at home thinking that I was a little bit harsh against Red Bull in Barcelona for imposing team orders and getting Perez out the way of Verstappen. But in that race, there was no other threat. It was Red Bull v Red Bull, and that was it for the win. And the two were actually fairly close in the championship stakes. And I thought it would have been nice to see them fight, but Verstappen was pretty much guaranteed the win anyway because he was that much quicker, and the team orders seemed a bit over the top. Here, Ferrari have a big threat. They have Lewis Hamilton that can beat them. It's different to Red Bull in Barcelona, and Hamilton is looking like a bigger and bigger threat, as is Charles Leclerc for Carlos Sainz.
He's going to come and have a lunge down into Stowe. He thinks about it very, very late in the day, but Sainz holds on. Leclerc making his presence very well known.
So target lap time for Sainz is 32.2, otherwise we'll swap.
But we are losing time compared to Hamilton. 2-2 is not enough, in my opinion. So you choose.
Understood.
In my opinion, for Leclerc, but I think he's taken that and he is running with it and trying to find every move in the book. Down through Village, it's going to be a late one. He doesn't, he has a look, but Sainz still holding on, but he's going to be all over the back of him, coming now onto the Wellington straight. How good is the run out for Leclerc? He'll get DRS and close right onto the back of Sainz.
So this is not good enough. We are swapping the cars.
Copy.
And he gets through. Sainz being told, not good enough, let your teammate through. Leclerc goes through into second.
It's taken a long time. I mean, they literally had to fight on track for it to happen. Sainz did a 32.7, not helped by the fact that he had to actually defend from Leclerc into Stowe, and not the 32.2, so half a second slower than Ferrari demanded. Leclerc finally then passed Carlos Sainz, who has not had the race pace today. Leclerc, even though he's missing part of his front wing, is a lot quicker than his pole-sitting teammate. And now we're into a fight then. Hamilton v Leclerc. Hamilton is 18.5 seconds ahead of Leclerc. It's about 19 seconds for a pit stop. So if Hamilton were to pit, which he has to do still, he's going to come out with Leclerc, but he's going to come out on fresher tyres. This is really juicy for the last 20 laps of this race. It's going to be a really good one. And do you remember last year, it was Hamilton v Leclerc for the win then as well, wasn't it? It was unlikely because Mercedes was so quick and Ferrari were not. Here, this year, 2022, Ferrari are so quick, Mercedes are not. It's unlikely again, but it's happening again.
And Leclerc, let's remember, with that damaged front wing as well, going superbly fast. The gap 18.6 seconds at the moment. As you say, it's about a 19-second stop in the pit lane. So Hamilton still going well over halfway distance. Lap 32 of 52 here at the British Grand Prix. Jenny?
I think he and Norris are just waiting to see if a safety car is going to come out, because neither of them have stopped. If a safety car were to come out, they can halve that pit loss time to about 9-10 seconds. So if they can do that, then they can see themselves really contending for potentially, I can't see how far back Norris is, but potentially first and second, at least two on British people on the podium. So let's see what happens with that one. And just a quick update, Zhou Guanyu, who had that big crash at the beginning of this race, has been declared fit and released from the medical centre. So very good news for Zhou Guanyu.
Great news for him. That's exactly what we wanted to hear after a horrible looking incident. Pleased that Formula 1 safety standards have held out in the end, and it's testament to that then that he's declared fit after a worrying incident. Norris isn't in contention for a podium, I don't think, here with the safety car. I mean, he's fourth and 14 seconds away from the two Ferraris, and of course the Ferraris can also pit under safety car as well. They could choose to do a second stop if they so wished. And it's a great drive from Lando. He's making the most of it, and you never know, if something happens to one of those Ferraris or Lewis Hamilton ahead, the podium's on for him. But without that, I don't think just the intervention of the safety car would help him out. For Hamilton, though, he'd be in charge if a safety car came out now. As it is, it's very, very tight. Hamilton v Leclerc, maybe with a sprinkling of Sainz meddling to help his teammate. Without with the safety car, Hamilton will pit, emerge in the lead, and be on a charge to the win here.
It is very tight and getting tighter all the time as Leclerc just slowly eating away into that gap with another fastest lap time. Further down the field, Mick Schumacher getting up into 10th.
So Leclerc 31.8, 1.4 unsafe to him.
Pete Bonington on the radio there to Lewis Hamilton, unsafe to Leclerc. So they are watching that gap. They know exactly what they're trying to do. The sound you're hearing is riding on board with Kevin Magnussen, who wants to be next to get through on Nicholas Latifi, who's been having an excellent run, but is now starting to struggle as one Haas has gone through already.
I can't maintain this pace forever, mate.
Yeah, copy Lewis, you're doing a great job though. So let's just keep building this offset.
1.4 seconds unsafe to Leclerc means that he's going to come out of the pits 1.4 seconds behind Leclerc, and we're going to find out right now because in comes the lead Mercedes of Lewis Hamilton.
He's in, Jenny.
It's the hard tyres that go on. It's a slightly, it's a slow stop for Hamilton. Something did not go well for that. Norris came in at the same time, so both cars coming in, but a slow stop for Lewis Hamilton.
4.3 for Hamilton, 4.4 for Ricciardo, who's come in as well. And Hamilton, where does he come out though? And he's behind both Ferraris as he exits the pit lane. Leclerc goes through to take the lead ahead of Carlos Sainz. Lewis Hamilton switching on to the hard compound tyre, comes out in third, but on much younger tyres, and that gap about 3 seconds to Sainz.
Should have been pretty close to Sainz. He was going to come out behind him regardless. Should have been closer. Slow stop from Mercedes when they least needed it.
Warm-up will be challenging.
And that's information then to Hamilton, weaving down the Wellington Straight, trying to get some heat into the tyres now. Hard tyres that will take him through the last 18 laps of the race. And now it's all hands on deck then for Hamilton to try and clear both Ferraris. First of all, Carlos Sainz, then Charles Leclerc for a race win. That's the sound of an agonisingly long pit stop. 4.3 seconds used to be, it would have been a thriller back in the day, but in modern times, it's about 2 seconds too long. And Hamilton there losing precious time in a race where he's genuinely in a fight for the win.
It was just slow getting off the front jack. They didn't know there was any particular issue going on with any of the tyres coming on and off, but just slow to release. But that has put him now down to third. Here's Sainz.
Okay, think about it for later. If Charles gives me DRS, no way Hamilton passes me.
Copy.
Ferrari then, are they going to think about playing some DRS games? Sainz worried then that Hamilton will just be able to breeze past him once he gets up to the back of him.
Yeah, so Sainz then saying to his race engineer, think about it as a tactic. Think about telling Charles not to go too quick so that Carlos Sainz can stay within 1 second of him and have DRS and basically form a bit of a DRS train to defend from Lewis Hamilton when he's going to catch up, if he can catch up on these hard tyres. Sainz now is nearly 2 seconds adrift of his teammate there, so he is falling away, and that's actually what Hamilton needs. He doesn't want Sainz to be within a second of Leclerc because Carlos Sainz is absolutely right. It will make it much harder for Hamilton to pass.
Lando Norris has a very quick pit stop, much quicker than Hamilton the lap before. 2.8 seconds for Norris. He's in and he is out for Lando Norris. Leclerc still leading, 1.9 from Sainz. Hamilton, Perez and Norris comes out in fifth. Perez with that early stop on the medium compound up into fourth at the moment. So Perez having to go very long on those tyres and getting up to speed, but he'll probably have to go. Do you think he can last on that one?
You'd have thought he's going to come back into the pits, if not just for will the tyre wear through, which we've seen a few times at Silverstone in the past. Norris out ahead of Fernando Alonso. That's the battle that he's in, 5th and 6th, which could become 4th and 5th again if Perez were to take a second stop, which I think he's going to have to do.
Lap 35, Jenny?
Yes, sorry, Perez, team radio.
So yeah, it's a stop with slow. As soon as these tyres come in, we will have good pace.
So he's waiting for the tyres to come in because he was 3 seconds coming out on the pit stop. He's now nearly 4 seconds behind, so he's losing a second with that tyre warm-up. We saw him weaving down the Wellington Straight to try and get some heat into those hard compound tyres for Hamilton, wondering why he's going so slowly, compounded by the slightly slow pit stop too.
6 seconds off the race lead with that slow stop for Hamilton. So he has fallen a little bit away. He's going to need to unlock some more pace to reel the Ferraris back in. And as he needs to put some more pace down, Leclerc does the fastest lap of the race, 7/10 quicker than teammate Carlos Sainz. So Sainz trying to get his teammate to just slow up and work as a team. It's not happening. It's Leclerc now 2.5 seconds clear.
It's not happening for Sainz at the moment as we see Esteban Ocon lining up a move on Max Verstappen coming into Stowe. Doesn't make it work through there, Jenny.
Yeah, just looking at the points as it stands. So Leclerc, Sainz, Hamilton finish. And it would be Verstappen on 179 points, Leclerc on 152 points with the fastest lap to his name at the moment. That means quite a big swing back in favour of Leclerc. So 27 points would be the gap between Leclerc in second place in the championship and Verstappen. Remember, Verstappen came into this leading by 49 points. Okay, 46 points from Perez, his teammate, but the gap between him and Leclerc was 49 points. So if this ends up the way it is, then that's a good clawback recovery from Leclerc, but I don't want to jinx anything quite yet.
It's not going to end as it is, because Esteban Ocon is about to put a move, I think, on Max Verstappen, who looks in the mirrors as they head down the Wellington Straight. Thought about covering the inside, didn't, holds on for now.
You can check your display. We need a LICO for 2%-ish from now on.
Sainz frustrated there, I think, at the least.
Not entirely sure what they were telling him there. Couldn't make that out. I hope it wasn't to find a bit more pace, because they've been saying that for 37 laps so far, and he's told them numerous times that there's nothing more to come. Hamilton on the last lap was 7/10 quicker than Sainz, who is going to be under pressure. He's 3 seconds away from his teammate. Sainz has no race pace today. He's really struggling for pace, and Hamilton is going to be with him soon. Leclerc is finding more time, though, on these new hard tyres.
He certainly is, and Esteban Ocon further back in the Alpine, running well, closing right onto the back of a struggling Max Verstappen into the right-hander of Stowe. It's actually a fairly easy move for Esteban Ocon, who slides down the inside on the reigning world champion. Ocon through and up into 9th. 8th, that puts Verstappen down into 9th. Ocon now starts to streak away. This has been a miserable race so far for the reigning champ.
Just struggling is painful for Verstappen. He just can't do anything. We were riding on board with Ocon a little bit on the last lap, and you can just see Verstappen scrabbling around, missing some apexes, struggling to get the car stopped or turned in because he's missing that rear downforce. And on the hard tyres, it seems a bit compounded.
The move being done there by Esteban Ocon. 15 laps to go here at the British Grand Prix. Pit stop shaking the order out. Leclerc leads on the harder compound tyre ahead of Sainz and Lewis Hamilton, who after a slightly slower stop is now starting to eat into the 2 Ferraris in front of him. He's got the fastest lap. He's in 3rd. Former Renault Formula 1 driver Jolyon Palmer is alongside me. This has been a fascinating British Grand Prix so far.
It has been really fascinating. Verstappen dropping out of contention, the championship leader. Perez, his teammate in the other Red Bull, had damage early on. The 2 Ferraris should have been in control, but they've had Lewis Hamilton for company. Mercedes with upgrades this weekend. Hamilton with a lot of pace is looking to try and catch the 2 Ferraris and close in, and he's going to have to pass them to take the win. He had a slow stop though. He lost 2 seconds in the pit stops just a few laps ago, so that's left him with more work to do than he'd want. And whilst he's just taken the fastest lap on the last lap, it's only by a smidgen from Charles Leclerc, who looks to be his main competition here for the win.
The top 5, Leclerc, Sainz, Hamilton, Perez and Norris on lap 38 of the British Grand Prix, Gigi. Fastest Sector 2 time for Charles Leclerc, who now has a 4.1 second gap to Carlos Sainz. Hamilton now seems to have got these tyres up to speed. Now 1.9 seconds the gap between him and Carlos Sainz. Verstappen, oh, that's a slow Esteban Ocon, I think, or going slightly slowly, because Verstappen has been able to catch right up to the back of him, coming onto the Wellington Straight. DRS open, Ocon just moves right to the inside and lets Verstappen breeze past him. Ocon back down now and falling into the clutches of Mick Schumacher. Is that a problem there for Esteban Ocon in the Alpine?
I think it must be. It looks like he's got no pace suddenly. He's he's got no drive at all. Ocon's slowing, and he's going to be another retirement here. Comes out of left field, pulls off to the right-hand side. Are we going to get a safety car here? Can Ocon limp that car back to a safe place? No, he's moving it over to the right.
I have a problem, guys. I can't exit the corners.
Can't exit the corners. Doesn't look like he had any drive coming out of them. Esteban Ocon juttering along in the run down to Copse. It looks like that might be day done for the Alpine driver, who was caught up in that skirmish in lap 1 on the opening lap in that huge incident coming in, which involved Zhou Guanyu, and the Alpine team principal Otmar Zafnauer with head in his hands, gutted at that. He stopped on track, has Ocon. Yellow flag out.
It will be a safety car. It will be a full safety car for where Ocon has stopped, because that's not in a good place at all. It's on the inside heading into Copse Corner. There's no easy gap, I don't think, to get that car off the road. Safety car has been called. If that had happened a few laps earlier, it would have been quids in for Lewis Hamilton. As it is, what happens now is Hamilton has a free stop behind. The Ferraris clearly don't. So Hamilton's got to do the opposite of whatever the Ferraris do, and Sainz pits. Leclerc stays out, Sainz pits, Hamilton pits.
Both coming into the pit lane. The time is dramatically lost in the pit lane under safety car. It's about 9 seconds, but coming off the back of a slow stop for Lewis Hamilton previously. Pressure now on the Mercedes mechanics. He comes in now, as does the Ferrari. Jenny Gow's down there.
Yeah, it's a soft set of tyres for Lewis Hamilton. He thinks he can get racy. Daniel Ricciardo in the McLaren comes in. He'd already been switched onto the soft tyre. He fancies going on to something else as well. This is going to be an absolutely intense race to the finish now. Fascinating with 12 laps to go.
So Charles Leclerc leads the race still, as he was, but he should be collected by the safety car now. So he's going to go slowly because it's a full safety car. He's going to be at reduced pace. Sainz has had a free pit stop and Hamilton has had a free pit stop. The rest of the pack will bunch up. It might have worked nicely for Sergio Perez to take a stop here. That's the sound of the Red Bull leaving the pit, squealing away on a set of soft tyres as well. And Leclerc is going to be under big pressure. Suddenly, Ferrari maybe have Sainz in the pound seat for this Grand Prix.
This certainly switches things up a bit. You cannot have predicted what has unfolded this afternoon at the British Grand Prix as Sergio Perez comes round. Leclerc has the lead but hasn't pitted under safety car.
Guys, are you sure this is the right tyre?
So no position loss.
Well, Hamilton questioning the strategy. He hasn't lost a position, but he's on that softer tyre under safety car.
Others are copying him. I think it's the right decision for Mercedes. There's not going to be a long way to go in this race when we get underway again. There's 12 laps to go now. They've still got to get Ocon's car off the road. Many other drivers pitting and putting on soft tyres as well. You know what? Perez is going to be fourth in this as well. Perez is suddenly looking at some points in the other Red Bull. He's taken a free pit stop, emerged on soft tyres. They pitted early on to repair his front wing. And Perez can get in the mix with Hamilton and the two Ferraris as well. This might have been a really tough call on Charles Leclerc now. He's going to have to defend on hard tyres with everyone behind him pretty much on a set of softs.
It's been a bit of a quiet race for Sergio Perez, actually, but he's snuck his way up there, as you say. The strategy working out at the moment. Latifi's come into the pits to his Leclerc.
So Sainz and Hamilton behind with new soft.
That's going to be hard.
We have got a good Grand Prix on our hands when this gets going. Leclerc with a damaged Ferrari leading the race, but on hard tyres towards the end of this. It's just going to be a sprint now to the flag. Sainz, his teammate, is going to be there. He's going to rear gunner him, or is Carlos Sainz fancying this as a maiden win for himself now? Having taken pole yesterday, he's not really been there in terms of pace today, but with strategy and luck there with the timing of the safety car, Sainz is maybe best placed to win this race on soft tyres behind his teammate on the hards. But then there's Hamilton and Perez now. Perez back in contention in fourth. Ocon's car's removed. We're going to get going hopefully quite soon.
I think so. We'll have about 10, just over 10 laps, depending on how quickly they get that cleared up. The Alpine well out the way as Lando Norris comes into the pit lane and dives into his pit box. This is a late call, I think, for Norris. He won't be too pleased at the safety car and Alpine being cleared, but still no notice yet of the safety car coming in. Norris, nice quick stop, 2.67 for the British driver in the McLaren, and should come out in sixth. He just loses out to Fernando Alonso.
Alonso went the lap earlier, I think, for the soft tyre, and Norris has lost out, but because everyone else hasn't caught the train up yet, it was still a relatively cheap pit stop for Norris. Everyone, the race leaders are behind the safety car and the train. The field was so spread out that everyone else hadn't joined, so Norris could take that pit stop and not lose out too much. Still sixth.
Leclerc leads, Sainz, Hamilton, Perez, Alonso, Norris, Vettel, Magnussen, Verstappen and Stroll the top 10. Schumacher, Latifi, Ricciardo, Tsunoda at the top 14, and we've lost Ocon, Gasly, Bottas, Russell, Zhou Guanyu and Alexander Albon from this race as Lance Stroll comes into the pit lane, and we do go another lap around with the safety car, still awaiting for that sign to come in. All drama so far in the British Grand Prix. It's taken yet another turn as the Alpine of Esteban Ocon grinds to a halt. That brought out the safety car and that cued some pit stops. Not so, though, for our leader, Charles Leclerc, but those behind him, his teammate Carlos Sainz, Lewis Hamilton, Sergio Perez, all coming in and switching to the softer tyre.
Lapped cars may overtake, lapped cars may overtake.
And we're now coming in to the end of this safety car period shortly as the lap cars are being allowed to overtake, and we will soon get this back to you, Gigi. Well, lap car's being overtaken, so that can only assume then they'll do that, and then the safety car will be in, and we will get a final, 10 laps of this Grand Prix underway.
Yeah, one more lap once the lap cars go through. There were only a few of them. I think it was only Ricciardo, Tsunoda. Ricciardo and Tsunoda. 14 drivers left in this. Race of attrition in modern standards of Formula One. Leclerc, hard tyres. Sainz, Hamilton and Perez on the softs behind him.
Guys, I'm going to be a lot quicker than Charles.
Copy.
Carlos Sainz he's had a really up and down race so far. He's been given more chances, I think, than most people. But Jenny Gow's down in the pits.
Yeah, this is now absolutely fascinating. Safety car still deployed, the lights flashing, the yellow flags waving. People still willing Lewis Hamilton on, but this is going to be thrilling. And Sergio Perez, well done to him for managing to do the tyre whispering this weekend. He came in at lap 5 to change over from the mediums to the hards and kept them going until that safety car came out. A very cheap stop for him to come in. So he's only been into the pits twice, whereas his teammate Verstappen has come in 1, 2, 3, 4 times. This is a very difficult race for Verstappen. But what's going to happen next?
Verstappen is in 9th, and Ocon retiring actually helped him out of position. The 2 cars ahead of Max Verstappen are Kevin Magnussen 8th in the Haas and Sebastian Vettel 7th in the Aston Martin. They're on mediums, and Magnussen particularly is on very old tyres. So Verstappen still has a chance to get some more points out of this. Mick Schumacher's in the top 10 as well, running in 10th place in the Haas.
Don't say it too loudly.
He's yet to score a point. Let's say the facts. He's yet to score a point, Harry. He's 10 laps away. And the good news for Schumacher, I guess, is Nicholas Latifi's just behind him as well, and he's yet to score a point this year and hasn't looked close yet. So Schumacher, with not a huge amount of pressure behind, can look to try and get something out of this Grand Prix. Oh, we're half a lap away from the restart. It's going to be tense.
Safety car ending officially at the end of this lap. Leclerc will take over as effectively the safety car. He will control the pace, but this is certainly a race that has benefited some of the usual occupants just outside the grid. The Haas is fighting in the points. We mentioned Latifi as well, holding on to into 11th, which is what has been a fantastic race so far for the Williams driver, holding firm. And here's Carlos Sainz.
To give 10 car lengths to Charles and some breathing space. Within 10 car lengths.
But guys, I'm under pressure from Hamilton. Please don't ask these things. Please. Let's say stop inventing. I'm under pressure also.
Wow.
So Ferrari telling Sainz to back away from Leclerc, let Leclerc get the restart underway on his hard tyres. Sainz hasn't done that. He's right in behind Leclerc, says, guys, stop making stuff up. I want to fight him. And it looks like he's going to do that. Coming into the final corner.
Trust me, there's more to lose like that.
Copy that.
I think Leclerc's gone though, but Sainz is right there with him, as is Hamilton and Perez coming round the final corner now. Safety car in. We're back racing. 10 laps to go then of the British Grand Prix as they snake their way down into turn 1. Sergio Perez in the Red Bull looks the closest at the moment to trying to find a way through on Lewis Hamilton for 3rd. Can Perez come through and take the podium places away? Hamilton looking under pressure at the moment. Perez, the Mexican racer in the Red Bull, tries the up and under, the tighter line, better traction on exit, coming down nothing, but the 2 Ferraris as well, going side by side down the Wellington Straight, and it's Carlos Sainz who is fighting to get in front, and he has done into the braking zone of Brooklands. Through Luffield they go, and it's Sainz in front of Leclerc, and Red Bull's Perez in front of Lewis Hamilton.
What team orders? Sainz goes straight through. Perez with the restart. Hamilton has not made the most of this then. A poor start from him. And it's Perez into 3rd. Leclerc on the hard tyre struggling. Perez right behind him as they flash into Copse Corner. Hamilton's still there. Sainz saying, trust me. And he's gone into the lead. It's the best chance for Ferrari to win this one, probably. He's scampering away from Leclerc, who's struggling on the hards.
I think Leclerc's going to really struggle to stay on the podium here. He's fallen right back from Carlos Sainz. Perez is looking the punchiest at the moment out of this top 5. And look who's joining them. The wily old fox Fernando Alonso right up behind Lewis Hamilton as Perez has a look down the inside into Stowe on Leclerc. Too far back on that occasion. But this is playing all of a sudden back into Carlos Sainz's hand. And you have to say, we thought this had gone away from him right at the start of the race. It wasn't working out for the first time pole sitter. But in his 150th Grand Prix, currently Carlos Sainz leading this race ahead of Leclerc and Perez in 3rd, Hamilton 4th, Alonso in 5th.
Sainz scampering away, 1.2 seconds ahead now. What happened on the restart then? Hamilton was fighting with Perez. Hamilton went in a little bit deep into turn 4. Perez got the up and under and came through. And at the same time, there was a move for the lead, gloriously missed by the camera, and Sainz managed to get through on the Wellington straight then. Leclerc must have got bad traction out of turn 4, and Sainz snuck through to take the lead. And he's now 1.2 seconds clear. Leclerc's got his mirrors full of a Red Bull. Who'd have thought that would be happening today?
Well, if you predicted this British Grand Prix, I think it was really luck at the draw right now. Perez side on with Lewis Hamilton in the battle for the final podium position. Perez fighting with Hamilton. He has to defend coming into Copse and at the inside line. Hamilton has to stick behind for now. Hamilton fighting hammer and tongs to get Perez from third. Hamilton, who was leading this race, first race he's led since last year, now currently in fourth. Perez is the man on the march right now.
Well, Leclerc's actually stabilised now on his hard tyres. Perez had a really horrible run out of left field. Was he trying to have a run at Leclerc and got it wrong? Or is Leclerc now looking okay on those hard tyres? Now they're up to 10th. Sainz is checking out at this one, 2 seconds clear. And with all the time Leclerc's in second place, Sainz is looking better for a first win. There's DRS on the next lap, though. It's not been enabled yet, but on the next lap it will be. And Leclerc is going to have his mirrors full of Perez, and Hamilton's still looking quick.
Lap 45 of 52 back underway, and once again more drama. Carlos Sainz on the safety car restart has been able to pip his teammate Leclerc and retake the lead, and he is checking out in front ahead of Leclerc, who seems to be struggling. Sergio Perez in the Red Bull is the man on the march right now. He's had a quiet race so far, but is now up into third ahead of Hamilton.
DRS enabled. Right, let's get Leclerc.
Here we go then, Hamilton closing up under braking, but you're right, Jolien, Sainz is just using this to his full advantage. He's able to check out, but look, they're really concertining up on the run out of Luffield. Alonso's lurking in the rear of this too. Leclerc second, Perez third, Hamilton fourth as they come into Copse.
Yeah, Leclerc just doesn't have the pace at the moment. He has to cover the middle of the road into Copse with Perez breathing down his neck. Perez there in the Red Bull third. Hamilton at the moment off the podium in fourth place, was just caught out at the restart, passed by Perez, and he's not able to make his way back through yet. He's on the back of the Red Bull, who's on the back of the Ferrari, who's dropping away from the other Ferrari at the front. Sainz looking very good.
DRS now open. Leclerc won't get it. Perez will. Hamilton will. Perez is going to try and go down the inside into Brooklands. Leclerc turns in. They go side on. Can Leclerc stay on track? He's run a little bit wide. That'll give him the inside line coming into Vale. Perez is going to try and stick round the outside. Perez runs off the track. Hamilton sneaks underneath both of them and takes them both into the final corner. Hamilton gets two positions in one corner as Perez and Leclerc do battle. Hamilton skates through up into second, but Perez isn't in letting him get away with this one.
Perez down the inside at turn 3 of Village. Hamilton left the door open and Perez is back through, forces him wide on the exit, and now Leclerc's coming back. It's amazing racing between a Red Bull, a Ferrari and a Mercedes. Finally, in 2022, it's all for second place, and Hamilton, having got into second, left the door open for Perez, and he's back down to fourth. In fact, Alonso's on his inside.
Fernando Alonso being brought right into this fight. Perez currently heading the queue in second, but Mercedes of Lewis Hamilton right side on now with Leclerc. Perez up into second. Leclerc just chops off Lewis Hamilton, who has to back out of it. That's putting him into the clutches of the Alpine of Fernando Alonso. Now Hamilton goes defensive into Copse. Alonso has to hide back for now. Sainz leads. Perez second. Leclerc third. Hamilton fourth. Alonso fifth. Norris sixth.
Amazing racing between Perez, Leclerc and Hamilton, all on the edge of legality, to be honest, forcing each other a bit wide in Vale, in Club, in Village as well, and it's worked out well in the end for Perez. He's up into second. Now it's Leclerc third, Hamilton fourth. Leclerc has DRS to defend though now, because he's still in behind Perez for the time being.
Well, it's just settled down, hasn't it? Race control investigating Perez leaving the track and gaining an advantage. We're seeing a replay now coming into Vale. Leclerc on the inside, Perez being run out of room on the outside. They just both run wide, and oh, what a sensational move from Lewis Hamilton, coming up the inside of both the Ferrari and the Red Bull in the final corner. The sound you're hearing is riding on board with the 7-time world champion. Hamilton just keeps the nice tight line, better traction, and through he goes. Nicely done for Lewis Hamilton, but he then did lose out once we went round again.
He had to be covering the inside into Village, and he left the door open for Perez, who just snuck it down. He did then force Hamilton off the road on the outside though, And Perez, the incident's noted for Perez gaining a position off track with Leclerc. He then did also force Hamilton wide on the exit of Village, which is technically, it's more against the rules this year.
Drama every time you come back to us at the British Grand Prix. Is lap 47 of 52. Carlos Sainz still leads. We've just seen a sensational move. Lewis Hamilton getting two cars, Leclerc and Perez, in the final corner, but then losing out. Perez and Leclerc back through again. It is a fascinating battle between second, third and fourth as Carlos Sainz, former Grand Prix driver Jolyon Palmer, starts to edge away from this.
Hamilton's got a run on Leclerc. He's going to the outside at Stowe. You might hear a crowd cheer in a minute. Not quite, because Leclerc defends it on the inside. Sainz is getting away with the win. Perez is in second, and Hamilton is fighting for a podium.
Leclerc defends. He had this time with Perez last time around. Hamilton bails out of that one. You've seen what happens there. 5 laps to go. Coming around the final corner now. Across the line once more. Sainz leads, Perez second, Leclerc currently trying to hold on to third on the harder compound tyre, the slower tyre. He's got front wing damage as well, defending from Lewis Hamilton, who's bringing Fernando Alonso and Lando Norris along for the ride too.
Leclerc's going to be in trouble this time, coming out of the loop. Slow speed left-hander. Now they accelerate. You can hear Lewis Hamilton's Mercedes on board. He's going to open the DRS and he's going to have a run at the Ferrari for third again.
Lewis Hamilton coming down to the braking zone, takes the outside line, a really wide line for Lewis Hamilton. The Ferrari runs deep though. Hamilton out wide. He's going to go round the long way. Can he do it and get past Leclerc? The crowd cheers. Hamilton currently just a car lengths ahead. Leclerc is trying to come back at him side by side coming into Copse. They'll both be familiar with how this turn rages out. Leclerc holds on around the outside. We're riding on board with it.
He did hold on around the outside.
He holds on through Magnus and Beckett. Leclerc back up into third ahead of Lewis Hamilton. Lap 48 of 52. Carlos Sainz leads, but this is the battle we're all following. It's Lewis Hamilton going through on Charles Leclerc, coming into the right-hander of Stowe. Once again, he swoops round. Hamilton up into the podium places once more. Leclerc now having to look at his mirrors because Fernando Alonso wants a piece of this too.
It's getting worse and worse for Leclerc. Big, brave defence from him on that lap. I mean, hanging on around the outside of Copse corner. Side by side, the two of them was majestic racing. Hamilton has been fair or even more than fair in all of this racing. And I think it's cost him the place to Perez when he left the door open. Perez is now comfortably in second. Sainz has the win in his grasp. His first ever Grand Prix victory is just a few laps away. He's 3.7 seconds up the road from Perez. Hamilton 2.5 seconds away from Perez. The top three now stabilised, and it's Leclerc having to hold off Fernando Alonso in fourth.
And Lando Norris is coming in for this battle as well. 2 Brits left in this after George Russell sadly had to retire in the opening lap. What a race so far we're having here at the 56th running of the Silverstone British Grand Prix. We're seeing replays of that fantastic move. Lewis Hamilton with better drive coming out of left field, gets it through on Leclerc, but then riding on board is the sound you're hearing. Well, just a few laps to go of this sensational British Grand Prix so far. Sainz leads ahead of Perez and Hamilton. Leclerc in fourth. Max Verstappen, the reigning champion who was battling for the lead right at the start of this race, now finds himself trying to battle with Mick Schumacher in the Haas. Schumacher all over the back of Verstappen, currently occupying seventh. Schumacher in eighth. Mick Schumacher has not scored a point in Formula One so far. They do battle as the top three starts to settle down. It's Sainz leading ahead of Perez, Hamilton, Leclerc, Alonso the top 5, Norris, Verstappen, then comes Schumacher, Vettel, Magnussen the top 10.
Schumacher's having a great drive in 8th, putting pressure on Max Verstappen. Their dads used to be teammates at Benetton in the 90s. Now they're finally doing battle from either end of the grid. It's been a horrible race for Verstappen, but he's actually in 7th, and with Leclerc falling away, there might not be that much to separate the two. Ferrari have made a terrible strategy again. It's cost Leclerc here.
Here comes Mick Schumacher on the back of Max Verstappen. We haven't really seen too much of, well, Verstappen since he has issues with his Red Bull. Not happy in that car, changing tyres, a potential puncture to blame to start with, but just a car problem. Verstappen limping home in 7th at the moment. Mick Schumacher in the Haas, though, keeping with the reigning champion. And Vettel and Magnussen are a few seconds off this battle, so if they continue to fight, that might well bring a tasty end to 7th place here. But really, battles everywhere you look in this British Grand Prix. It has just stabilised and settled out at front at the moment. Lap 50 of 52. DRS wide open coming onto the hangar straight for Mick Schumacher. Does he try and dive down the inside into Stone? No. Follows him through line astern for now. Verstappen continuing on down into the braking zone of Vale. Into the left-hander. Sainz still leads though, lap 51. It's a 3.3 second gap, and he sets the fastest lap. What a turnaround for Carlos Sainz race.
Well, it's the strategy. It's the strategy that's worked for Sainz today, and it's gone against Leclerc in a horrible way for Ferrari, who were 1-2 in the Grand Prix when the safety car came out. Esteban Ocon's Alpine came to a halt. They were 1-2. They pitted Sainz, they didn't pit Leclerc. It's left Leclerc on hard tyres, scrabbling around for grip. He's in fact just holding on from Fernando Alonso now, 4th, with Alonso in 5th. It's going to be a dubious call. I think Leclerc's going to have many questions for the Ferrari team, but it's worked nicely for Sainz, who is on the penultimate lap, looking to win his first ever Grand Prix.
Jenny Gow's down in the pit lane.
Yeah, if it were to end like this, then Verstappen would be on 179 points. If he could just hold on from Mick Schumacher at the moment, Leclerc 151 points. So the gap between the top two would come down to 28 points. Leclerc trying to chase down Verstappen in their championship battle.
The sound you're hearing on board with the Haas driver, Mick Schumacher, who I don't think we've seen anything of in this race until recently because of just how much action there is. Of course, it has been a race of attrition. We've lost Ocon, Gasly, Bottas, Russell, Zhou and Albon after a huge incident into turn 1. Zhou and Albon both suffering and being taken away. Medical checks, they have been cleared for that and being seen to, so that's good news for those two, and that has left us with a restarted British Grand Prix, and well, it's been action ever since that 53-minute red flag period was up. We start the final lap of this race here at Silverstone for the British Grand Prix. Sainz with a 4-second gap now to Sergio Perez, and Lewis Hamilton on the podium in 3rd with just a few corners left to run.
Hamilton's had it all in this Grand Prix, hasn't he? A good start initially, then put back, then he's had great pace and fighting with the Ferraris on merit for a race win. The safety car came, dropped him back again, or he dropped himself back behind Sergio Perez, and now he's back into 3rd, beating a Red Bull.
Mick Schumacher going down the outside into at the end of the Wellington Straight with Max Verstappen over 7th and 8th. Verstappen cuts back across him, forces the German off track. He has to slide back on Schumacher, giving it some in these final stages, trying to claw a few extra points. But Schumacher currently on course to score his first ever Formula One points if he can hold on to that 8th or even go one better for 7th.
Important point still this for Verstappen, championship leader, down in 7th place. It's been a horrible race for him with damage, but he's still going to get some points out of it.
Lap 52 of 52. Carlos Sainz in his 150th Grand Prix took his first ever pole position, started on pole, and he wins his first ever race in Formula One at Silverstone for the British Grand Prix. The Scarlet Red Ferrari crosses the line in front of Red Bull's Sergio Perez, and it's a home podium for Lewis Hamilton in 3rd, who takes the fastest lap points as well. Mick Schumacher is going to dive down the inside of the final corner to try and take 7th away from Max Verstappen, but he doesn't. He holds on into 8th. Leclerc limps home in 4th. Alonso gets a top 5. Lando Norris is 6th. Then Verstappen. Mick Schumacher gets his first points in Formula One in 8th, ahead of his good friend Sebastian Vettel, and Kevin Magnussen makes it a double points finish for Haas.
Wow. Vamos. Good job.
We did it. Yes! We did it. Yes! Vamos!
Bravo, Carlos.
Carlos Sainz on the radio there. Vamos indeed. The pit wall celebrating. Sainz wins, Perez 2nd, and Hamilton 3rd. Gigi, back to you. Well, Jolyon Palmer, What a race that was.
What a Grand Prix. Sell out at Silverstone, and they have just seen a thrilling, topsy-turvy British Grand Prix, won by Carlos Sainz. His first pole position yesterday, first race win today. I don't know if he necessarily deserved it. I mean, he didn't have a lot of pace. He made a big mistake from the race lead earlier on. The strategy worked out for him, and he did what he had to do.
That's P3, mate, and fastest lap. Well done. Hell of a battle there, mate. Really impressive drive.
That was a tough one, guys. But great effort. We got to sharpen up all around. But thanks so much for the hard work. Good points.
Yeah, copy Lewis. Yeah, well done, mate. Really great drive.
Lewis Hamilton, who gets his third podium of the season. That's 3 third places for the 7-time champion. A hard-fought race for everybody on that grid. Just sensational. Stories up and down. Mick Schumacher getting his first points as we watch the Haas driver waving to the crowd, but Carlos Sainz the happiest. Sergio Perez, where did he come from? It all looked like it wasn't going his way. I know you say the strategy played its part, but Carlos Sainz got a fair few lives in that one. Starting on pole, then the restart, got pole back again, even though he lost the lead. It did certainly go his way.
Well, then Verstappen passed him, and then Verstappen had an issue that's made his race a real struggle from then on. I mean, Max might also get into trouble for some of his wheel-to-wheel with Mick Schumacher at the end as well, really forcing the Haas driver off at Brooklands. Perez has been cleared for his forcing drivers off track or gaining an advantage with Leclerc. Stewards maybe deciding that was 50-50.
Hamilton went for 30.5 there last lap, but you try your best. It was a mega race.
Yeah, he can have that. I don't care today. I don't care. I don't care.
And thank you very much for this race.
Thank you, Ricky, for all the effort you put in this year. Thank you and the team, of course. Everyone. My first race winning Formula 1 and with Ferrari is you cannot imagine how it feels. And in Silverstone.
You got to feel happy for him. I mean, one of the nicest drivers on the grid. He's a really hard-working driver as well, and he's been close. He's been close on so many times. Monaco, right on the tail of Perez for the win. Last time out, right on the tail of Verstappen for the win. Yes, he's had a few lives today. Luck has been kind to Carlos Sainz with the strategy, with Verstappen hitting problems, even with a restart that allowed him to keep the lead again. But that's how it goes sometimes. He's been unlucky in the past as well. He's been so close, and finally he gets that win.
As Carlos Sainz emerges from his cockpit, he puts the steering wheel in, he's taking his time to get out of that scarlet red Ferrari, and he celebrates to win the British Grand Prix. Jenny, you're down there watching.
I am. It's been a long time since he's been able to celebrate winning, but my word, what a win that was. What a race it was. He gets congratulated by, I think it's Fernando Alonso, the man who was his idol when he was growing up, and fellow Spanish man, a man who has helped to advise his career, and Daniel Ricciardo runs up to him as well. Carlos Sainz, very well liked and respected in this paddock, and you'll never guess what, guys. It's just starting to rain.
Typical. Of course it has.
I can't believe it. So Sainz grabs the Spanish flag. He goes up to his cousin who's waiting for him. It looks like the barrier is going to collapse under the strain of the Ferrari mechanics and engineers. There's the tricolor flag waving. There's the Ferrari flag waving. He goes up to Perez and they hug as well. What a happy victory this is for Sainz. There'll be one person who won't be happy in this, Leclerc, because he will be wondering what on earth happened to make him in that position. But he will be happy for Sainz. He'll just be disappointed for himself. But the championship battle is back on.
Quite possibly, but Sainz had to push for those calls to be made, didn't he?
Leclerc's taken 6 points out of Verstappen. That's not enough when Verstappen finishes in seventh place with a problem the whole way through the Grand Prix, or most of the way through. Ferrari have had another strategy woe, let's say. Great for Sainz, they'll be pleased for him. Leclerc was their faster driver today. He was the one leading the Grand Prix at that late safety car, and they've dropped the ball with it, and Leclerc with it has lost 13 points from what he could have done today. You don't win championships like that.
You don't, and one to look back on Ferrari, but it's another example of Carlos Sainz forcing strategy changes and implementing what he wants. A sign perhaps that he's just got that little bit of extra skill in that department, but maybe not in the outright pace. But today, it certainly proved dividends as Sergio Perez wins driver of the day. And it was certainly an epic drive from the Red Bull man. Let's hear from Sainz with Jenson Button.
Carlos Sainz, you are a race winner in Formula One.
I have to say, it's amazing. I mean, first race win, 150 races later with Ferrari in Silverstone. I cannot ask for more. It's a very special day, a day that I will never forget. A very special weekend in general, and yeah, thank you everyone for the support, for the cheers. Lewis was on it today, I heard. It was one of his days, but we managed to hold on, and I'm incredibly happy.
It seemed like one of those races that it threw everything at you. There were difficult times through it, but you stayed strong mentally, and you came through at the end.
Yeah, it was not easy. I struggled quite a bit with the balance, especially on the first stint with the medium tire. Max was forcing us to push a lot through the high speed. I opened the front left, but even with all that, I stayed believing that it could still happen. I needed to stay in the race like I was trying to, and then all of a sudden the safety car gave me the opportunity to get back on it, and yeah, we did it. You can imagine the nerves on that safety car restart, knowing it was my chance and getting it done, and then the win.
Well, you missed an epic race behind you. You were just out.
I heard,
front.
yeah, there was a lot going on, yeah.
Yeah, but congratulations. That was an epic win. Have you got a message for the crowd here?
Yes. Yeah, no, thank all of them, because, you know, Silverstone has been a bit of a special place for me. First ever race win here in Formula BMW back in 2010. First pole position here back in 2010, and suddenly 12 years later I achieved exactly the same, but in Formula One with Ferrari. So it's a special place for me, and I thank the whole crowd for being part of it and cheering me on.
Excellent, congratulations. Big round of applause for this man.
Thank you.
Checo. Wow, I did not see that coming. Congratulations, that was a great comeback after a very, very difficult first lap incident.
Yeah, it was a great comeback, you know. We didn't give up, and we kept pushing. Then the opportunity came there at the end, and we just stood for it. It was a great fight with Charles, first of all, then with Lewis. I felt like I had the position, and then Lewis was there. It was just an epic final laps, but it was a good fight within us.
So what happened on lap one? Turn 3, there was a bit of contact?
Well, what a brilliant end to this British Grand Prix. We now say goodbye to our listeners on BBC Radio Northampton. Thank you so much for your company in what has been an epic British Grand Prix.
Well, you gave us some of the best racing we've seen, so it was an epic race, and congratulations.
Thank you, man.
Lewis, I know it must be tough coming away with a P3. It looked like you had a real chance for another home victory, but you put on a hell of a show for us.
Well, first, I really have to give it up to this crowd, because we've had the biggest show up in history here in the UK. So thank you to everybody for the incredible support. We don't see this anywhere around the world. This is literally the greatest group that we get to see, so I'm so grateful for that. And I gave it everything today. I was trying to chase down those Ferraris, but congratulations to Carlos. They were just too quick today for us, and at the end I was in amongst that battle with Checo. Those guys were just too quick on the straights for me today, but I'm so grateful for the hard work all the team did to get an upgrade here. We've made a step closer to them, so we've got to keep pushing.
I think everyone here really thought you had a massive chance for the victory. Your pace when you were chasing down the Ferraris, but the weakness seemed to be when you had new tyres on the car. It seemed like you struggled to turn them on a little bit.
No, I mean, we lost a little bit of time in the pit stop, and then I was like chasing, but the pace was great on both sets of tyres, and at the end there it was just a little bit difficult when once you get a Red Bull behind you, they're so fast on the straights. So we've got some improvements to make, but this is a huge bonus for us to be on the podium. I'm glad everyone was safe from the big crash at the beginning of the day, but yeah, thank you to everybody, as I said, we're going to continue to push. Let's keep trying to be the best we can, and send you all positivity.
Well, thanks for putting on a great show for all of us here. Cheers, Lewis.
Well, Brilliant to hear there from our top three, Carlos Sainz, Sergio Perez, and of course a home cheer for Lewis Hamilton, who gets onto the podium there. We did just see pictures as well of Stefano Domenicali, the boss of Formula One, chatting with Zhou Guanyu and Fred Vasseur. So brilliant to see them out of the car. It's Sainz who wins ahead of Perez, Hamilton, Leclerc, Alonso the top 5, Norris, Verstappen, Schumacher, Vettel, Magnussen the top 10, Stroll, Latifi, Ricciardo, Tsunoda 14th, and last of the finishes we lost Ocon, Gasly, Bottas, Russell, Zhou and Albon. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live.